Chapter 386. The sect with 10 million disciples. Upon hearing Gu An's words of comfort, Wu Ju could only offer a bitter smile. An amused chuckle came from a nearby cell. Covering the sky with one hand? The Sheng family really has such capability. Guan turned his head to look and saw an old man with white hair approaching the edge of the prison cell, his hands bony and clutching the mahogany bars. He looked at Guan with a face full of scorn. Guan feigned a frown and asked, "Could it be that you are also from the Sheng family?" The old man laughed and said, "If I were from the Sheng family, how would I have ended up like this? Like your friend, I offended the Sheng family, and even the Hall of Elders told me to lay low for a while. I've been locked up for a century now, and I fear I will spend the rest of my days here, waiting for the day the Sheng family sheathes their butcher's blade." After listening, Wu Ju slightly lowered his head. Guan angrily said, "I refuse to believe it. Is the Sheng family really so tyrannical? I am going to find the sect leader now." With those words, he left with a swish of his sleeve. Wu Ju opened his mouth but in the end said nothing. Deep down, he too harbored a glimmer of hope. The Third Medicine Valley was a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The socially adept Guan might indeed find a way. After Gu An's presence faded from the dungeon level, Wu Ju began to worry. He suddenly feared that if this did not succeed, it might instead implicate Gu and Wu Ju, isn't it? "I didn't expect you to have such a naive friend. Shouldn't the side of a genius be surrounded by hypocrisy?" The old man said in a mocking tone. Wu Ju didn't respond, too weary to engage with him. Wu Ju was already familiar with the man's toxic tongue, and he disdained to argue with such people. He seemed dejected, yet deep down he held a confidence. He was still capable of enlightenment. If no one stood up for him, one day, he would uphold justice for himself. Meanwhile, after leaving the dungeon, Guan did not go directly to find LV Baitian. Considering Wu Ju could find enlightenment, it was better to let him reflect for more time. Guan wandered around the inner sect city, meeting disciples who had graduated 200 years ago and probing information about the Sheng family. He could divine outcomes, but he preferred to immerse himself in this grudge and investigate in an ordinary capacity. If that failed, then he could only win by virtue. Gu An's disciples were spread throughout the supreme sect. While it was said he was discerning about the Sheng family, in reality, he was enjoying free meals and drinks. Having wandered all day, he felt satisfied body and soul. From today's findings, the Sheng family indeed held significant power. There were many clans within the supreme sect, but few could stand out and incite fear as they did. The disciples were fearful that Guan would offend the Sheng family. Upon understanding why he was investigating the Sheng family, they all advised him to stay out of it. When Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, it was already night. Lights shone brightly in the valley, and from a distance, Guan could hear the laughter and cheer of the disciples. Guan felt relieved. Thankfully, the powerful clans within the supreme sect had not jeopardized his Medicine Valley. If they had, blood would have flown like rivers. Guan stopped at the base of his own building but didn't go up immediately. Instead, he knocked on Ji Xiaoyu's door. "Come in." Ji Xiaoyu's pleasant voice echoed from inside, and Guan pushed the door open, then closed it behind him. As he approached Ji Xiaoyu, she curiously asked, "It's rare for you to seek me out proactively. Is something the matter?" "What kind of question is that? Can't I visit you without a reason? Weren't you the one who blamed me for not taking the initiative to see you for decades?" Guan said dissatisfiedly, about to turn around and leave. Sitting on the bed, Ji Xiaoyu quickly grabbed his wrist. "Of course you can visit. Come sit down," Ji Xiaoyu said gently with a smile, pulling Guan to sit next to her. Guan grunted. "I saw your place was bright and lively, and something just drove me to come have a chat with you, but your first words angered me quite a bit." "Oh my, can't I admit my mistake?" Ji Xiaoyu replied helplessly. How could he suddenly become so childish? But it was quite amusing. Such were Ji Xiaoyu's thoughts as her lips curved upward involuntarily. Guan then smiled and said, "That's more like it. Today, I saw Wu Ju, and he began to recount Wu Ju's trials, with Ji Xiaoyu listening attentively because she remembered Wu Ju well. After Guan finished talking about Wu Ju's situation, he continued with his interactions with other disciples. For the first half hour, Guan did all the talking. Ji Xiaoyu then figured out his intention. Surely he wasn't seeking her help, was he? In the end, Guan lamented, even within the Supreme Sect, injustice exists. Fortunately, our Medicine Valley keeps a low profile and serves the Supreme Sect undisturbed. Why are these clans so overbearing, and might they one day surpass the Supreme Sect? Ji Xiaoyu responded, it's possible but difficult. If it comes to that, the Supreme Sect might just become one of their subordinate forces. The stronger the Supreme Sect, the more hopeless it becomes for those disciples caught in dire straits. Guan sighed. He then stood up and said, we've talked for so long, you should continue cultivating now. Your future is not limited by the Supreme Sect. After speaking, he walked away. Ji Xiaoyu watched his departing figure, wanting to say something but hesitated. Once the door was closed, she couldn't help but mutter, he only visits when he needs something, and he even expects me to apologize while seeking my help? She shook her head and chuckled, then took out a piece of talisman paper and began to write. As soon as Guan sat down, he saw a white dove's phantom flying away through the window, disappearing into the night sky in the blink of an eye. Guan's mouth curved up. He thought to himself, not bad, quite sensible. Several days later, LV Baitian came to Guan, accompanied by an old acquaintance, Vice Sect Leader Ji Hantian. The three sat down in the room. Bang! Ji Hantian suddenly slammed the table and cursed. The Sheng family truly goes too far. Those overseas families really haven't integrated the principles of the righteous path of the Supreme Sect into their ideology. LV Baitian's eyelids twitched, and he said in a deep voice, why are you yelling? I'm outraged. You give the order to suppress the Sheng family, and they'll absolutely support you. Why don't you give the order? The Ji family has good relations with the Sheng family. I'm caught in the middle, it's difficult for me. It sounds as if the LV family hasn't benefited from the Sheng family either. We are both in tough positions. Watching them pass the buck, Guan found it amusing but also felt that the Supreme Sect had become somewhat superficial. Indeed, with the rapid expansion of the Supreme Sect, the cultivation levels of native high-ranking members couldn't keep up with the pace of the sect, naturally diluting their power. Guan spoke up. Suddenly, I feel like writing a book. Ji Hantian's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. Pan-ANS influence is still considerable. Guan glanced at him and said, I'll write that the Sheng family is a powerful clan that the Ji family and LV family fear. Ji Hantian glared and said, Guan, don't joke around. Guan asked, I understand why the sect leader is here, but Elder Ji, why have you come? Ji Hantian huffed. It's all because of you. That girl Ji Xiaoyu is actually helping you, so I had no choice but to come myself. Guan immediately felt somewhat annoyed. When the third miss was forced to go to the 7 Stars Spirit Realm, you couldn't stop it. Now Ji Xiaoyu asks you for help, and you face difficulties again. The Ji family is strong, but it feels like it's all about making compromises. At this remark, Ji Hantian's expression instantly darkened. Guan then opened a drawer, took out the fate-determining pen, and from a stack of papers beside him, he pulled out a sheet of white paper. Seeing the two argue, LV Baitian intervened. I also trust in Wu Ju, but the Sheng family lost a disciple, one considered among the top 3 talents of this generation. We must provide an explanation to the Sheng family, and I assure you I won't let anything happen to Wu Ju. Regardless of his relationship with Guan, in the years where Guan had strategized, he truly felt that the strength of the Supreme Sect today could not be separated from Guan's contributions. Guan remained silent, writing down names on the paper. All individuals related to the Wu Ju incident, including those from the Sheng family and others. They knew the truth, but were pushing Wu Ju towards an abyss. If they were compelled, that would be one thing, but the conflict began with them following the Sheng family genius in insulting Wu Ju and even attacking him. Their lies were to protect themselves. Choosing to be lapdogs and bullying others, they should prepare for the backlash. What are you doing? LV Baitian frowned and asked. Guan continued writing without speaking, making him genuinely afraid that Guan might do something foolish. He solemnly said, the Sheng family has a loose immortal. Do you know how high a loose immortal's cultivation level is? If the path of immortality were smooth, you'd have to cultivate for tens of thousands of years, The Supreme Sect hasn't had an immortal live that long. Tens of thousands of years. This phrase weighed heavily, making LV Batian and Ji Hantian feel immense pressure just thinking about the age of the Shang family's loose immortal. Guan lifted his pen, gazing down at the names on the paper, and said with discontent, "I hate my own powerlessness. If I were an immortal, how could I stand by and watch my close friend suffer?" After saying this, he gripped the fate-determining pen and made 2 strokes on the paper, drawing a large X as if to vent his frustration. LV Batian tried to comfort him. "Don't think like that, and besides, the Shang family is just angry but hasn't pressed me any further." Guan looked at him. "Do you remember what I told you hundreds of years ago, when you were still Elder Tian?" Upon hearing this, LV Batian immediately fell silent. Ji Hantian spoke earnestly, "Guan, don't act impulsively. If we mess up, all 3 of us could be in trouble. We could be abandoned by our families, you could be abandoned by the Supreme Sect. All these are possible." Guan said, "Fine, I understand, I'll pretend I don't know about this matter." Seeing his indifferent expression, LV Batian was somewhat uneasy and asked, "Really? I am but a nascent soul realm cultivator. I can't break into dungeons or step through the Shang family's gate. What can I do?" Guan replied. LV Batian, after hearing this, could only sigh. "I won't see you out, but I'll remember what you've said." While speaking, Guan pulled out a book from beside him. LV Batian wanted to say more, but Ji Hantian tugged at him, and after exchanging glances, they stood up and left. Although Guan felt somewhat disappointed, he could also understand, not everyone had the same confidence as him. Nonetheless, he had already taken action. What happened next depended on how these 2 responded. If they didn't handle it well, they too should consider moving aside. This had nothing to do with personal connections. The Supreme Sect's sect leader and vice sect leader needed people with greater breadth of spirit to take on these roles, for the Supreme Sect was not just any clan's sect, but a sect of millions of disciples. Chapter 387. The final rode LV Batian and another left, and after about half a month, rumors suddenly spread throughout the Supreme Sect. A group of crazed disciples were proclaiming throughout the inner sect city the incident of Shang family's genius bullying Wu Ju, and consequently being killed in retaliation. The matter of Wu Ju killing a fellow sect member had already caused a huge uproar, and now these disciples were telling a different story, so how could it not provoke controversy? Even though those disciples were quickly controlled, the news still spread rapidly. Through the investigation of curious disciples, it turned out that the crazed group was originally the witness of Wu Ju's fratricide. Now having seemingly lost their minds, they presented a different testimony from before, forcing people to consider the possibility of a conspiracy. Some suspected that someone behind Wu Ju had acted. Others speculated that these individuals could no longer bear the psychological pressure and feigned insanity to reveal the truth, while some even believed that they had initially been poisoned by the Shang family and were compelled to lie. But now that the effects of the poison were manifesting, they had lost their sanity and were revealing the truth with their last bit of lucidity. Opinions were varied, and Wu Ju once again became a center of attention within the Supreme Sect. The incident grew so significant that even members of the subsect such as Yilan and Zhenqin came to find Guan, fearing he might get dragged into it. The Shang family is truly ruthless, to actually poison someone. TSK, even the subsect is discussing this now. Wu Ju is regarded as a top genius of the Supreme Sect, yet he lacks a family background. If this matter isn't handled well, those disciples without a family background will feel disheartened. Zhenqin remarked astonishingly. Yilan was rather calm, saying, "Which sect could maintain peace over hundreds of years? There's always some troublemaker. Sword Venerable Fu Dao hasn't appeared for many years. It might be that the nobles are testing his attitude." Holding a book, Guan focused his divine thought on the distant ocean. The deep-sea dragon carp was being pursued by a group of demon creatures, in grave danger. This guy too had gone through 81 difficulties, just one short of completion. Zhenqin tossed her hair casually and said, "Let them create chaos, it's about time." Guan looked at her and asked, "How about you? Have you been dealing with the Ghost Mother of Ephemera lately?" Upon hearing the name Ghost Mother of Ephemera, Zhenqin's smile vanished and she snorted. I'm no match for her. I can't trouble Senior Jiang anymore. I can only cultivate first. Fueled by her hatred for Su Han, Zhenqin's zeal in cultivation remained high, which also made her innate reincarnation skills quite effective. That's good. It's not easy for Jiang Qiong either. After saving you, she must be feeling quite awkward facing her own deputy sect master. Guan continued her thoughts. Zhenqin nodded, then changed the subject. I heard from a master that the Yuanshu ancestor truly opened up a reincarnation realm right in the heavens, but who really knows what reincarnation is like? Speaking of reincarnation, Guan thought of Xiaochuan, who had been in the reincarnation vortex for a long time without reincarnating. At least within the great heavenly spirit land, Guan temporarily couldn't track his destruction Dao Seal. Could he have reincarnated into another great heaven and earth? Is a divine thought true immortal that powerful? If there really is a reincarnation, I'm quite looking forward to it, just afraid that in reality, there is no reincarnation. If every person is reincarnated, then where did the original souls come from? Yilan raised a question. The two women began to explore the subject of reincarnation, intentionally avoiding the topic of Wuju. Guan chimed in occasionally, and time passed quickly. As evening approached, the two women left. Guan then departed from the Third Medicine Valley, first heading to Mystic Valley, planning to stay for an ancient hour before heading to Hidden Spirit Palace. Upon arriving in Mystic Valley, he saw disciples gathered together, listening to an older disciple talking about the Sheng family, with Jiangshi standing in front of a tree, also listening intently. The issue with the Sheng family had become so explosive that disciples from every tier were discussing it. The reason those disciples went mad was not actually related to the Sheng family. It was Guan who used the power of cause and effect to torment those disciples, continually making them witness the tragedy of that Sheng family genius. Over time, unable to escape the illusion realm, they had collapsed. As for revealing the truth about the Wuju, it was also guided by Gu and using the power of cause and effect. At this very moment, the Sheng family was in turmoil. The higher-ups were overwhelmed, discussing how to handle the situation. Guan walked towards his disciples and joined them to watch the excitement and discuss. Upon seeing Guan, Jiangshi immediately sat down, behaving very cautiously. Decades had passed, and he still looked forward to cultivating with Guan. Even though he had reached the core formation realm, he had no thought of leaving Mystic Valley. The more this was the case, the less Guan wanted to accept him. He had deduced Jiangshi's karma and found no great cultivator plotting, which made Guan even more uneasy. Why had Jiangshi set his sights on him? Could it be the workings of the heavenly Tao setting him up for a calamity? Jiangshi didn't know what Guan was thinking. He stayed in Mystic Valley because he feared being pursued by the Imperial family and the Li family. Without the strength to protect himself, he didn't want to leave Mystic Valley. As for Guan, although he felt that this master was no ordinary person, he didn't think in the direction of Sword Venerable Fudao. To him, Sword Venerable Fudao was just a vague legend. Except for Lu Jiujia, all Mystic Valley disciples in their lifetime had never seen Sword Venerable Fudao act. They harbored doubts, suspecting that Sword Venerable Fudao might not even exist. After a long chat, Guan finally stood up and left, and the disciples dispersed. Watching Guan disappear into the forest, Jiangshi turned his head and quickly went to Lu Jiujia's side, whispering, "Senior brother, where is Master going so late? Why is he always going out?" He had been puzzled by this for 100 years, and had long wanted to ask. Lu Jiujia glanced at him and said, "Mind less about where your master goes." Jiangshi hastily apologized. Lu Jiujia paid him no more attention and walked towards his own house. Once seated cross-legged on his bed, he gazed out at the bright moon, a look of melancholy in his eyes. Lately, he had been increasingly feeling weak, a tiredness beyond words, always feeling that once he closed his eyes his life would be over. He began to understand that the so-called imminent end could indeed be perceived. His days might be numbered, and he needed to think about how to settle his affairs. If he were to die, who should he leave the position of eldest disciple to? Who could serve his senior brothers as well as he did? He immediately ruled out Jiangshi. He wouldn't choose a disciple his senior brother disliked for his position. On the other hand, Guan arrived at the hidden spirit palace and saw that the deep-sea dragon carp had finally escaped danger, hiding in a cave under the sea. After confirming it was safe, it fainted. "You escaped a calamity. Let your final journey be easy," Guan murmured to himself, then flicked his hand, sending a spell through the sea in a way incomprehensible to mortal spirits, entering the body of the deep-sea dragon carp to help it recover from its injuries and regain its demonic power. Afterward, he began picking medicinal herbs. After picking the medicinal herbs, he didn't leave. Instead, he stayed in the Hidden Spirit Palace and read. The Hidden Spirit Palace housed a great collection of books, all of which were his prized possessions. When he wanted to be alone, he would come here. Chapter 388. The strongest immortal dynasty. The night deepened, and the Hidden Spirit Palace, located at the depths of the sea floor, fell into tranquility. Guan lay on a chair, holding a book in one hand, while occasionally the sound of the ocean's tides and the cries of mysterious demon beasts echoed in his ears, like a symphony that brought peace to his mind. Time rapidly slipped away in such an atmosphere. Guan set his book aside, stood up, stretched lazily, and looked outside the Hidden Spirit Palace, where he saw the deep-sea dragon carp again embarking on the journey to find the Hidden Spirit Palace. There should be no problem with the journey ahead, as there were no formidable demon creatures blocking the path. Guan watched for a while, then left the Hidden Spirit Palace and returned to the Supreme Sect. The case of Wu Ju was still the most prominent concern within the Supreme Sect, with many righteous hearts demanding that the sect thoroughly investigate the reasons behind the madness of those disciples. And if their claims were true, Wu Ju must be granted justice. How could other disciples not panic when even a talent like Wu Ju could be slandered, suppressed, or even potentially killed? This was happening right beside them. There were even disciples who publicly called out in the inner sect city, seeking to rally the sense of justice in other disciples, holding the Righteousness and Demons, written by Panin, a book that documented the sword Venerable Fudeo's efforts to quell internal strife within the Supreme Sect. With this book in hand, even the disciples from the law enforcement hall dared not apprehend him. While Guan used his divine thought to observe the disciples' public address, he walked into the Third Medicine Valley. Some disciples had already introduced the issue to the Medicine Valley, prompting other disciples to join in discussions. The storm was growing bigger. This pleased Guan. Perhaps the higher-ups were worried that this matter would bring unrest to the Supreme Sect, but Guan was not afraid. He had feelings for the Supreme Sect and did not wish to see it become the sect of a single family, especially since this family was a newcomer from overseas. Wasn't this like a dove taking over a magpie's nest? Now it remained to be seen how the Supreme Sect would confront the pressure from the disciples. Guan did not join in the discussions of the disciples and returned to his attic alone. On the other side, within a dimly lit hall, LV Baitian, Jihantian, and three great cultivators sat around a long table, looking very grim. These three great cultivators were from the venerable pavilion of the Supreme Sect, which towered above the Hall of Elders. Despite years of development and foreign forces diluting the power of various halls within the Supreme Sect, the venerable pavilion remained under the control of the original families, which was their bottom line. Gu Gua took a deep breath and said, "The situation has escalated beyond concealment. It's time to put pressure on the Sheng family." The aged Ji Hengshi stroked his beard and said, "Indeed, pressure must be applied, but the question is how. Sheng Tianzong is already furious and even hopes that we defend the image of the Sheng family." The venerable who replaced Zhou Yu, coming from the LV family and named LV Lai, had a gloomy face and remained silent. LV Baitian glanced at LV Lai with a flicker of displeasure in his eyes. Ji Hantian, known for his explosive temper and inability to hold back, glared at the three venerables and said, "At this point, we should stop passing the buck around. We are all in this together, and if the Supreme Sect does nothing, we will be the first to suffer. If we don't suppress the Sheng family now, other families will certainly trample over us." His attitude was starkly different from when he faced Guan, fearing at that time that Guan would be exposed to the Sheng family. If only Sword Venerable Fudao could take action, how wonderful that would be. LV Lai suddenly spoke up. LV Baitian glared at him and said, "What, should we disturb him over such a trivial matter? Have you forgotten his current status? He is now the holy sword of the holy court. Even the colossal star-sea congregations appear insignificant before him. Lai shook his head and remained silent. Gu Guo pondered. Investigate the Sheng family thoroughly. This is a good opportunity. It's rare for the Sheng family to make a mistake, and we can use this to suppress the influence of other overseas families. Think carefully. How could those disciples be driven mad by the Sheng family? Even if it were true, the Sheng family would never let them out. The talent of Wu Ju is no small matter, and he rose from humble beginnings. Throughout history, where have there been so many strokes of luck? Anyone who rises from obscurity has surely the backing of a great power behind them. Ji Hantian looked at Gu Guo with brightened eyes and asked, "Do you mean that Wu Ju has the support of Sword Venerable Fudao behind him?" Gu Guo replied, "It's not impossible. Think about it. The Supreme Sect is not some geomantic treasure land. Who among the past geniuses wasn't related to him? He wouldn't care about the small affairs of the Supreme Sect, but he would definitely step in if it involved the overall spirit of the sect. This group of disciples who inexplicably went mad is the best proof." Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. The shadows on their faces gradually dispersed. If they had the support of Sword Venerable Fudao, what was there to fear? Perhaps he is also watching our actions. If we... Gu Guo continued, leaving his sentence unfinished, but everyone understood his implication. Following his train of thought, the others were shocked and felt a chill run down their spines. Ji Hantian slammed the table and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's do it now. I'll take the lead." With that, he disappeared from the room in an instant. The rest looked at each other, and Ji Hengshi gave a wry smile. Will his temperament ever change? Change? Maybe in the next lifetime. I'm off as well. Batian laughed and stood up to leave, vanishing as well. The three venerable pavilion members did not linger long, vanishing from their seats simultaneously. An hour later, a piece of news shook the Supreme Sect. The venerable pavilion ordered a thorough investigation of the Sheng family and deployed a large number of disciples to surround the Sheng family's residence. As soon as this news came out, cheers erupted in the cities of the Supreme Sect. The truth had yet to be verified, but the Sheng family's reputation had already soured. This was because other disciples who had been oppressed by the Sheng family were also exerting their influence, spreading word of their high-handed behavior. In the evening, Guan sensed the breath of battle emanating from the main city of Sect, but it quickly faded. The one who had made a move was the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Batian personally went to invite the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who himself held the position of an elder, and thus was not afraid of the Sheng family. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord had intervened, moved by what Batian had said, for Batian hinted that Sword Venerable Fudao was secretly observing this farce. Guan did not mind the Venerable Pavilion using his influence as leverage. After all, it was the truth. Moreover, without giving them some confidence to forcefully confront the Sheng family, it would have been difficult. What Guan wanted was their stance. That night was destined to be restless. When the sunlight of the following day streaked across the entire Supreme Sect, many legends had already spread among the populace. 2 days later, the Supreme Sect posted a declaration, revealing the cause and consequences of Wu Ju's case, clearing his name. It also informed the disciples that the Sheng family too was unaware of the truth, deeming it all a misunderstanding. Although many disciples were dissatisfied, wanting to directly topple the Sheng family, the Supreme Sect would not abandon a noble family over this affair, especially since the deceased was a genius of the Sheng family. Wu Ju came to find Guan as soon as he was released, expressing his gratitude. "Me? I had nothing to do with it. I spoke up for you and ended up getting lectured by the sect leader and the vice-sect leader," said Guan, shaking his head while he poured Wu Ju some tea. Wu Ju showed a smile and said, "They're only scolding you because they're worried you might get into trouble. They're probably just trying to stabilize you first while they prepare the evidence." He felt that the frenzy among the disciples was stirred up by the likes of Batian and others, who dared not openly claim it was the intention of Sword Venerable Fudao. Faced with numerous speculations, they neither denied nor acknowledged. Guan huffed. "Who knows what they're thinking? But as long as you're cleared of the charges, I'm happy." We must drink joyously all day and night today. You can't run away. Wu Ju laughed. With your cultivation level and mine, you think you can outdrink me? After this ordeal, he had gained clarity about many people and events. He did not harbor resentment but swore to become stronger and to repay Guan. A noble family, huh? If that was the case, then I too must become a noble family. Holding his bowl of wine, Wu Ju thought to himself as he looked at Guan's smiling face. He also wanted to become Guan's support, as a way to repay him. Guan didn't know what he was thinking, but regardless, it didn't matter to him. The issue with the Sheng family was, in his eyes, no issue at all. Helping Wu Ju had many methods. Choosing this way simply added a bit of fun and anticipation to life. Guan turned his gaze towards the window. A gale had begun to blow outside, as if the world was on the brink of great upheaval. Compared to the grand trend of the world, the Supreme Sect's minor incidents were insignificant. The Immortal Dynasty was poised to make new moves. Lately, Guan had sensed the return of many existences above the immortal Tao fifth layer heaven to the great heavenly spirit land. All of them spirits from the Immortal Dynasty. Although the Holy Court had not welcomed a large influx of powerful individuals, they were clearly strengthening their positions in every domain. It seemed that the Magic Battle Conference had not brought long-term peace, but had given the Immortal Dynasty greater hope. Beneath a night sky sprinkled with dazzling stars, atop a colossal palace with no ceiling, the Yangxian Emperor was meditating below a golden light sphere, eyes closed, hands continually casting spells. A figure appeared above the Grand Hall, the ancient Immortal Emperor. The ancient Immortal Emperor, frowning slightly, asked, "Do you truly intend to break through by force? With your talent, you would surely surpass me. Why can't you be a bit more patient?" Without opening his eyes, the Yangxian Emperor replied, "It's not that this emperor lacks patience, but Sheng Tian isn't giving this emperor a chance. If we let him succeed in his tribulation crossing, the Immortal Dynasty will no longer exist. His talent, as you know, is clear. The realm you could not traverse, he will surely reach. It's just a matter of when." The ancient Immortal Emperor said, "The reincarnation tribulation is not that simple. Do you want to gamble the fate of the Immortal Dynasty on his failure? Or bet that it will take him 1,000,000, 10,000,000 years?" The ancient Immortal Emperor fell silent at Yangxian Emperor's retort. Soon after, the Yangxian Emperor opened his eyes and looked toward the distant cosmos, saying, "Moreover, the Yuanshu ancestor did not open the paths of reincarnation without merit. What comes next will be the most potent period in the history of the Immortal Dynasty. All those supreme beings will return to fight alongside this emperor." Excitement appeared on his face, unable to wait for a battle with the Holy Court. The ancient Immortal Emperor watched him and said, "Then how do you plan to break through? You don't think the Holy Court would be so arrogant as to allow you to break through, do you? If the Saint Ancestor does not make a move, I too must refrain, or else the situation will spin even further out of control." The Yangxian Emperor shook his head and said, "You need not worry, for this emperor has his own plans. I would even hope for them to try to stop my tribulation crossing. It would give me a justified cause to gain the upper hand." Chapter 389. Do you know what my cultivation level is? As autumn gave way to winter, the snow gradually blanketed the vast Taicang continent. Guan, wearing a mask, sat on the eaves, gazing up at the sky while Sage Xian Miao, in the courtyard below, engaged in alchemy and curiously watched Guan. The mountain god seemed engrossed in something, having been watching for quite some time. Sage Xian Miao silently thought, yearning for the perspective of the mountain god. The scenery before the mountain god's eyes surely transcended imagination. Could something be happening beyond the heavens? Sage Xian Miao guessed right. Indeed, something was happening outside the heaven, and it was an event of great importance to the world. Guan saw a host of immortal spirits arranging a grand formation in the cosmos. The scale was so immense that even the silhouettes of two divine thought true immortals could be discerned, sitting cross-legged above the formation, their auras completely unhidden. Someone was about to break through. With such an array, it seemed likely that a divine thought true immortal was attempting to advance to a free immortal. Guan could not calculate precisely who it was. The Immortal Dynasty was protected by chi fortune that obscured cause and effect, Of course, given time he could figure it out, yet to know or not held little significance because divine thought true immortals were scarce. And as for free immortals, currently, there was only one in each domain. There were only 2 acknowledged free immortals in the entire visible great heavenly spirit land. Guan stood up, looking down at Sage Xianmiao, and said, "Great changes are coming to the world. Cultivate diligently and do not be lazy." Having said that, he vanished into thin air from the eaves. The world is about to change? Sage Xianmiao frowned. What kind of calamity would it take for the mountain god to speak of a great change? Elsewhere. In one step, Guan arrived inside the hidden spirit palace, his gaze directed outside the barrier, where the deep-sea dragon carp lingered nearby. After previously bumping into the barrier and confirming the location of the hidden spirit palace, it did not seem in a hurry. Instead, it idly circled the barrier's vicinity, making not a single sound. Guan stepped onto the open space in front of the hidden spirit palace gate, raising his right foot, and immediately after, the deep-sea dragon carp appeared right under his foot. The deep-sea dragon carp was stunned, its fish-eyed gaze widening. This time, it did not struggle but instead watched Guan calmly and steadily. "Do you have a death wish? Speak, steamed or grilled?" Guan asked expressionlessly, looking down at it. The fish eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp turned teary once again. None of the hardships and dangers it had encountered on its journey had humiliated it as much as being before Guan, where it had cried twice. Guan's heart remained unsoftened. After a moment's thought, the primordial divine eye appeared on his forehead, shooting out a beam of golden light into the body of the deep-sea dragon carp. The deep-sea dragon carp shivered as its body stiffened. After a few breaths, as if sensing something, it cautiously asked, "Are you an immortal?" It spoke with a human voice, sounding like a young boy, full of childishness. Guan did not move his foot, asking, "Whether I am or not, what does it have to do with you?" "Immortal. Will you take me in? I will submit to you as my master. Just teach me divine skills, and I will obey you forever." The deep-sea dragon carp pleaded with tears, its tone brimming with misery that would tug at one's heartstrings. "Why should I take you in? I beg you. How did you hear of immortals' legends at the bottom of the sea? Since I was little, I've had many memories that are not my own, likely passed down by my ancestors. I have seen the descent of immortals, and they look just like you. I am human, and the human race exists in this world." "No, you are different from the human race. You give me the same feeling as those immortals." Hearing this, Guan narrowed his eyes, directly employing the great imprisoned soul immortal technique to search through its memories. The eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp lost their luster, appearing as if dead, and it even began to blow bubbles from its mouth. After a long while, Guan withdrew his divine thought, his expression peculiar. There actually were immortals. In the memories of the deep-sea dragon carp, that was a very ancient time, and Guan could not determine how long ago it was through its memories because its bloodline memories were intermittent. The immortals in its memory were undoubtedly beings beyond the 9 heavens of immortal path. There were 5 in total, descending from the heavens, casting mysterious crystal stones into the Songhai. That was the only fragment, yet the vision was clear. It demonstrated that the ancestor of the deep-sea dragon carp cherished this memory deep in their bones, unwilling to forget. Guan recalculated, verifying that the deep-sea dragon carp indeed had no other significant karma, before he felt at ease. He gently kicked the deep-sea dragon carp, jolting it awake. Without Guan's suppression, the deep-sea dragon carp suddenly soared upward, floating midair. The deep-sea dragon carp looked at Guan timidly, very nervous. "I can take you in, but are you sure you are willing to give up your freedom for eternity?" Guan asked. The deep-sea dragon carp, overwhelmed with joy, eagerly nodded and said, "I am willing. As long as I can cultivate with you. As long as I can become an immortal, I am willing." "Become an immortal? You'll have to prove your worth first." Guan cast a disparaging glance at the deep-sea dragon carp, then began to introduce it to the situation at Hidden Spirit Palace. The deep-sea dragon carp listened intently, fearful of disappointing Guan. After finishing his instructions, Guan told it to stay put for the time being, and that he would teach it cultivation technique later. Then he went back to the Supreme Sect. The deep-sea dragon carp turned its head to look at Hidden Spirit Palace, its fish eyes shining brightly, filled with exuberant excitement. After decades of hardship, the sweet payoff had finally arrived. 13 years later. In the dead of night, Guin stood atop a peak at the edge of Mystic Valley, toying with the fate-determining pen in his hand while gazing at the night sky. The lord of the immortal dynasty, Yongxian Emperor, was about to undergo tribulation. The cosmos had gathered tens of thousands of mighty immortal spirits. Even the weakest among them was of the wandering immortal realm. And that was not the entirety of the immortal dynasty's power. Merely witnessing it was enough to make anyone marvel at the dynasty's strength. Above the outer layers of light, cultivators of the great heavenly spirit land from various great sects stood, discussing the unparalleled might of the immortal dynasty. They knew the immortal dynasty was formidable, but only today did they truly understand the extent of its strength. Most pivotal was that the holy court showed no reaction, as if indifferent to the tribulation of the immortal dynasty lord. What kind of terrifying heavenly tribulation is this? Such a dreadful aura. The number of heaven and earth flying immortals of the immortal dynasty seems to surpass the combined forces here. What do you think allows the immortal dynasty to stand against the holy court? The immortal dynasty is quite ambitious. Why does it seem like the holy court is wary of them? The disciples from the various sects, including those from Mortal World Peak, discussed such matters, and Guin listened in. The holy court was not wary of the immortal dynasty. They were clearly waiting for the right moment. Guin could sense that within one of the holy court cities, a vast number of divine immortals of wondrous dharma and carefree primordial immortals were gathering, evidently preparing for something. He had predicted a great battle where some of the cultivators from the layers above would fail to escape in time and be obliterated on the spot. This calamity would also impact the great heavenly spirit land, causing earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and other disasters across various domains. For many years to come, Taitsong continent would suffer its influence, and countless living beings would face challenging times. Guin had no intention of intervening. Such tribulation would not affect his medicine valley. As for the common folk, they would attribute these hard times to natural disasters, unaware of the high-level conflict. While the immortal cultivation world could understand what was happening, they too would be swept up in the turmoil of conflict. If the holy court's control was shaken, the world order would encounter an upheaval not seen in a million years. Yongxian Emperor. Interesting indeed, quite a remarkable figure. Guin mused to himself, envisioning Yongxian Emperor's imposing dominance in the years to come, casting a shadow of dark times over the holy court until the emergence of Shengtian. However, he could not predict where Shengtian would be. There were many like Ji Xiaoyu in this world, burdened with the karma of reincarnation, making it difficult to deduce past lives through such karma, thus challenging to discern which one might be the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Perhaps Shengtian wasn't even in the great heavenly spirit land. Just as Guin was contemplating the future, a set of footsteps approached from behind. The newcomer was Jiangshi. He cautiously approached Guin, and seeing that his master's eyes were not closed, he mustered the courage to ask, "Master, you've been here for such a long time. Is there anything you need? Let me prepare it for you." Guin, without looking at him, answered softly, "Then prepare some wine and dishes." Jiangshi, elated upon hearing this, quickly bowed and turned to make the arrangements. Guin wasn't too repelled by Jiangshi's eagerness. After all, the boy had performed well over the years, truly focusing on his practice. The lad had already reached the core formation realm. Only one realm below him, the Valley Master. With his talent, becoming the disciple of a great cultivator in the unification realm would not be difficult. Before long, Jiangshi returned with wine and dishes, along with a small table. Guin accepted the wine Jiangshi poured and, in a seemingly indifferent tone, asked, "Jiangshi, do you know what my cultivation level is?" Jiangshi paused for a moment, deliberating, then answered, "The senior brothers mentioned that you had reached the nascent soul realm many years ago." "Actually, I am a loose immortal," Guin suddenly declared, leaving Jiangshi with widened eyes filled with disbelief. Under Jiangshi's stunned gaze, Guin raised his hand and the clouds above swiftly churned, forming a majestic dragon coiling through the sky. After a few breaths, Guan withdrew his hand, and the spectacle in the night sky vanished, returning to its original state. Jiangshi was dumbfounded, doubting what he had just seen. When Guan lifted his hand again, Jiangshi felt the world spin. Upon opening his eyes once more, he trembled with fright. Guan had become gigantic like a mountain, and he realized he was standing in the palm of Guan's hand. At that moment, Jiangshi suddenly understood how Sun Wukong felt in the palm of the Buddha. Guan looked down at him expressionlessly and asked, "Do you now regret staying in Mystic Valley?" "No one knows of my cultivation level. Those who did are no longer alive." Jiangshi immediately knelt down, head bowed. Not daring to look directly at Guan, clenching his teeth, he declared, "No regrets. To be your disciple is the fortune of 3 lifetimes." His mind was in turmoil, and he had never anticipated Guan to be so formidable. All he could do was to desperately try to please Guan, and he was extremely fearful. After all, Guan had previously taken a dislike to him. Would he simply kill him now? He suddenly regretted coming up to the mountain to ingratiate himself with his master. But wait, if his master wanted to kill him, why go through such an elaborate display? As Jiangshi pondered this, his uneasy heart slowly calmed down. An approving glint passed through the eyes of Guan observing him. Even though the lad had made mistakes, he was not unforgivable. Lu Jujia's time was drawing near, and it might well be time to cultivate him. The reason for Guan's change of heart toward Jiangshi was the latter's unwavering dedication over decades to stay in Mystic Valley. He knew what Jiangshi feared, but that was not important. What mattered was Jiangshi's ability to remain seated in meditation, unlike Yang Jian, who sought to venture out upon gaining strength. Chapter 390. Displaying Divine Skills at Dawn. Guan emerged from the forest, followed by Jiangshi, whose expression was somewhat bewildered. Lu Jujia, who was organizing the disciples for training, turned his head and noticed Jiangshi following Guan, which sparked surprise within him. This young man actually dares to seek out his senior brother? In his heart, Lu Jujia lamented, seeing that Jiangshi clearly looked defeated. Guan continued on, joining the ranks of the disciples in preparation for training. Lu Jujia did not ask Jiangshi for details, but urged him to join the queue quickly as the training was about to start. An hour later, Guan left Mystic Valley, and only then did Lu Jujia dare to pull Jiangshi back to the house to ask about what had happened the night before. Under the control of Guan's divine thought, the disciples in the valley were unable to perceive the disturbances of the previous night, and even failed to sense the approach of Guan and Jiangshi's energies. Facing Lu Jujia's inquiry, Jiangshi shook his head and said, "Senior brother, don't ask. Rest assured I am fine. I will devote myself to building up Mystic Valley, and won't let you or master down." After hearing this, Lu Jujia felt uneasy. Why did it seem that this young man had grown closer to his senior brother? Even closer than him? Lu Jujia thought it over and figured, since he didn't have many years left to live, wasn't this situation what he had hoped for? He respected Guan and treated Jiangshi like a son, naturally hoping for a closer relationship between the two. "Perform well. Your master will take note," Lu Jujia said solemnly as he patted Jiangshi on the shoulder. Jiangshi nodded, his eyes blazing with a fire named combativeness. After the summer had passed, the Yangxian Emperor officially began his tribulation crossing. Guan stayed in the attic of the Third Medicine Valley, beginning to watch the divine thought True Immortal's tribulation crossing. He wanted to see if the heavenly tribulation of the Yangxian Emperor could match his own. As soon as the heavenly tribulation began, he was disappointed. It seemed not very strong. As a divine thought True Immortal realm being, he could have easily crossed it. While he was disappointed, the heaven and earth flying immortals in the exterior layers of sky shuddered with fear. Even from a great distance, they could feel the terror of the heavenly tribulation. What kind of heavenly tribulation is this? So far away and yet the pressure is still so terrifying? Which level of the immortal path's heavenly tribulation could this be? All I know is that from the 5th to the 6th level, the heavenly tribulation is nowhere near as frightening, and this is just the beginning. Could this tribulation affect the great heavenly spirit land? The immortal dynasty is truly formidable. The pressure we feel is just the residual effect. Look at their formations, how profound. The heaven and earth flying immortals discussed among themselves. Then, the carefree primordial immortal and the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma began to arrive. As time passed, the heavenly tribulation of the Yangxian emperor grew increasingly terrifying. From the beginning of the heavenly tribulation, Guan could foresee the result. Even at its strongest, the tribulation could not shake his physique from when he was in the divine thought true immortal realm. If he were to undergo the Yangxian emperor's heavenly tribulation, he would surely succeed on his first try. This heavenly tribulation would last a total of 7 days. The next day, the sky emitted a red glow, akin to a burning cloud. The cultivators of the supreme sect merely thought it beautiful, without giving it much thought. The same was true for 90% of the beings under the sky. On the third day, the temperature of heaven and earth suddenly rose, and the spiritual energy became violent, forcing many cultivators who were in seclusion to emerge, with some even being invaded by inner demons. On the fourth day, earthquakes and tsunamis began to occur all around the world, which the supreme sect couldn't ignore. On the fifth day, the holy court took action. Guan saw a multitude of holy court powerhouses shot towards the cosmos like a rain of arrows. Their mana converged together, forming a formidable force that struck the great immortal dynasty's formation with an unstoppable momentum. The tremendous aftermath shattered many stars and meteorites in the cosmos, and then surged towards the great heavenly spirit land. The scenario Guan had deduced occurred. Some heaven and earth flying immortals turned to ash on the spot, and the entire great heavenly spirit land was shaken. The great immortal dynasty's formation was broken in an instant. However, dazzling flames burst forth from Yangxian Emperor's body, brighter and more massive than even the 7 outer days, radiating endless scorching heat. Yangxian Emperor raised his hand and astonishingly repelled tens of thousands of holy court powerhouses with a single move, including 5 divine thought true immortals. Not only that, Guan saw divine spirits with powerful auras flying out from the reincarnation vortex, all of whom were divine thought true immortals, and Tao Void mysterious immortals. The origins of these divine spirits were extremely bizarre, untraceable, almost as if they weren't living spirits but came from the 9 netherworld. They did not go to aid Yangxian Emperor, but instead headed toward the Holy Dynasty. A world-shaking war thus erupted. In the ensuing time, Guan saw divine thought true immortals battling in the cosmos, Tao Void mysterious immortals fighting within the Tao realm, and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma, and carefree primordial immortals dueling in states unobservable by ordinary beings. The holy gods joined the fight. All the holy gods of the holy court were divine thought true immortals. Each of their arrivals resembled immortals descending to the mortal world, majestic and awe-inspiring. Guan was indeed riveted by what he saw, but of course he didn't forget his own identity, and he would also pretend to be worried when around others. On the 7th day, Yangxian Emperor had advanced to the free immortal realm, in full splendor. A violent storm approached. Under the pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu looked up at the rolling thunderclouds, her brow tightly furrowed. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor suddenly appeared beside her, sighing. This is the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation. This Yangxian Emperor is truly a rare genius in history, not inferior to Xingtian. Having 2 prodigies from the same era in a single great heaven and earth is terrifying. It's fortunate that they are adversaries. Upstairs, Guan heard this and his expression turned odd. The 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation? When he had broken through to the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm previously, his heavenly tribulation was called the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation. 3 realms more than what Yangxian Emperor is facing now. Did this represent a higher level of difficulty? Ji Xiaoyu spoke. Indeed, if there were stronger beings in the great heavenly spirit land to guide them to unite, then this land could soar. Sadly, there are no such supreme beings here, destined to have only one prodigy survive. From what we see now, I believe Xingtian will have the last laugh. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor showed a smile, saying, I on the other hand think Yangxian Emperor has more hope. The Holy Court entered the reincarnation tribulation later than your majesty, and by the time Yangxian Emperor unifies the great heavenly spirit land, he might not be able to escape from his tribulation. After hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu did not continue the conversation, her gaze firmly fixed on the sky. With a loud bang, a bolt of thunder appeared in the sky, resembling a giant dragon, spectacular to behold. I, Yongxian Emperor, ruler of the immortal dynasty, proclaim my ascension to the 9 heavens of immortal path. How dare the holy court obstruct my tribulation crossing? From this day forth, the immortal dynasty declares total war on the holy court. In this war, only one shall remain. The voice of Yongxian Emperor resounded, his tone mixed with towering rage, and the most profound part was that only beings of the immortal path realm could hear it, inaudible to mortal spirits. Guan couldn't help but admire. This guy's acting was also very strong. Clearly, he had been deliberately waiting for the holy court to make a move. The holy court had no choice but to act, unable to watch the birth of a free immortal in the immortal dynasty. Their failure to act this time meant that the holy court was defeated by the immortal dynasty twice. Guan was full of anticipation for the future. As the great chaos commenced worldwide, continuously more suicidal attackers would invade the Taitsong continent, and he hadn't taken action in a long while, eager to display his divine skills. Chapter 391 Acceptance. After the Yongxian Emperor's furious proclamation resonated throughout the world, the epic of great strife was officially unveiled. The successful breakthrough of the Yongxian Emperor led to his arrival at Holy Court, followed closely by other powerhouses of the immortal dynasty, who launched an unprecedented offensive against the Holy Court. However, with its robust Qi fortune, Holy Court managed to form a formation out of Qi fortune, blocking the offensive of the free immortals, which amazed Guan greatly. The way of Qi fortune was extremely versatile, no less than the way of cause and effect. To be precise, each of the 3,000 great Tao had its unique excellence, without an absolute strength or weakness, depending on the practitioner's achievement in their respective Tao. Ultimately, Holy Court withstood the Yongxian Emperor's assault, forcing him to retreat and return to the immortal dynasty to begin a seclusion. Although Holy Court survived, this battle came with severe losses, causing powers scattered across the world to start contracting. When sects throughout the world saw that Holy Court was not as invincible as imagined, many began to stir. Who didn't want to become the Holy Court? They were only submitting to the overwhelming might of Holy Court, not genuinely loyal from the heart. In the coming autumn, the entire great heavenly spirit land plunged into turbulence. In the late autumn, Guan, accompanied by an Xian, arrived at Mortal World Peak, quickly sensing the tense atmosphere enveloping the peak. The world was in chaos, with sects and dynasties watching. Choosing sides was necessary even without ambition. This was an unprecedented major upheaval in millions of years, making all forces quite cautious. After picking medicinal herbs on Dingtian Peak, Zhu Xinglan found Guan and informed him that the main peak had summoned him to attend a peak master meeting. Guan did not refuse and set off. All divine peak masters were present, and upon Guan's arrival, he received goodwill from many peak masters. After all, in their eyes, Guan was a being that even surpassed the carefree primordial immortal. So naturally, they wanted to forge an affiliation. Once all divine peak lords were assembled, Lord Yongnian began to elaborate on the situation of Mortal World Peak, with Holy Court hoping for their support to jointly attack the territories affiliated with the Immortal Dynasty. The Immortal Dynasty pressed their victory and rapidly expanded after suppressing Holy Court, showing a ferocious momentum of swallowing the celestial sphere. Now Lord Yongnian wanted to discuss whether to support Holy Court, and if so, how? Guan did not participate in the discussion, merely listening quietly. The vast majority of peak masters believed they should not rashly support Holy Court, their perception shaken by the formidable power of the Immortal Dynasty, especially the Yongxian Emperor, who demonstrated the world's top prowess amidst the mysterious disappearance of Shengtian. How dare they support Holy Court when the world's foremost stands with the Immortal Dynasty? Guan did not look down on them. In fact, their conjecture was correct. Without Shengtian, it was impossible for the two free immortals of the Immortal Dynasty to be defeated. The Peak Master meeting lasted an ancient hour, and in the end, they decided to agree to Holy Court's request, but to discuss later when to take action. Guan returned to Dingtian Peak and guided an Xian in her cultivation. Only when evening fell did the two return to the supreme sect. Walking in the woods outside Mystic Valley, Guan observed Zhu Shi while moving forward. Master, who do you think will have the last laugh between the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court? An ex-Scion excitedly asked, following closely by Gu An's side. She wasn't afraid of a major conflict between the two great powers. She believed her master could protect her. It's hard to say, but one thing is certain. This calamity will last a long time. Guan responded casually, his tone calm, as if he placed no importance on the matter. An ex-Scion then asked how powerful the Yangxian Emperor truly was, having heard many disciples of Mortal World Peak discussing him today, calling him the strongest of this era, the pinnacle of the immortal path. Very powerful, very powerful. Even with Hauer's talent, reaching that level would need hundreds of thousands of years. Gu An's response astounded an ex-Scion. Hundreds of thousands of years. After the shock, an ex-Scion fell into boundless speculation. Would she still be alive after hundreds of thousands of years? Her gaze involuntarily turned towards her master. For her master to mention hundreds of thousands of years so casually, to him, would hundreds of thousands of years be like 10 years? Or even 1 year to ordinary people? Anyway, she felt that no matter how strong the Yangxian Emperor was, he couldn't be as formidable as her master. Guan didn't know what she was thinking, but when he saw Zhu Shi pretending innocence after stealing medicinal herbs and sobbing in front of her master, he almost laughed. Given time, the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body would surely become a supreme warrior of the world, perhaps even surpassing the Yangxian Emperor. Unfortunately, she was born too late and caught in such turbulent times, truly bad luck. Wait, could it be? Born to meet the calamity? Guan showed a look of interest and began to deduce Zhu Zai's fate. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan Boda's fate was hard to predict, but as a Taoist hidden immortal, Guan could deduce some traces of cause and effect. As the years gently passed, with the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court entering full-scale war, the whole world burned in warfare, with far more shooting stars visible at night than ever before. Continuously, overseas cultivators fled to the Taitsong continent to seek refuge, also bringing many grievances and conflicts which kept spreading. 20 years swiftly passed. At the end of summer, Guan stood shoulder to shoulder with Lu Jiujia on a cliff, gazing into the distance. Lu Jiujia had a full head of white hair, and the twilight air around him grew heavier with each passing year. The effects of the youth-preserving pill had already faded. These years, the atmosphere within the Supreme Sect has truly become more tense, and even the sky above doesn't look as blue as before, always appearing gloomy. Lu Jiujia remarked with a sigh. Clouds scattered across the sky, not covering the entire sky, nor showing signs of wind or rain. Guan replied. Yes, it really is a season full of incidents. What do you think? Are we lucky or unlucky in this life? We always encounter various calamities, although we have passed through them safely under the protection of the Supreme Sect. Lu Jiujia chuckled. Naturally, we are lucky. Those seniors also thought their lives were filled with hardships. Everyone feels they weren't born in the best of times. I'm surprised you understand it so well, Guan said to Lu Jiujia, relieved. Watching as Lu Jiujia's days were numbered, he couldn't help but think of Xiaochuan. Why hasn't Xiaochuan reincarnated yet? Could it be that he reincarnated in another world? Guan thought of the Immortal Dynasty summoning back so many powerful immortal spirits from the reincarnation vortex, and felt that the reincarnation vortex was not so simple. That's thanks to the good teachings of my senior brother. Besides, I won't live too many more years, and the calamities in my life are all made by myself, no one else to blame. Anyway, I am quite satisfied with this life, Lu Jiujia said, shaking his head with a wry smile. Guan snorted. How come you all have no regrets when it's time to die? Are you afraid of burdening me? He had already seen many pass away, each one departing with a smile, leaving him not too sentimental, only occasionally feeling nostalgic. Ha ha ha, senior brother, don't think too much. Is it possible that under your care, we really had a good life? We have all ventured out and experienced the dangers of the world, which is why we cherish our current lives and are content with the lives we have led. You really don't need to think too much. No one should be responsible for another's life. Lu Jiujia laughed heartily, then spoke earnestly. He could tell that senior brother cared about the cultivation of those around him. He knew senior brother did not seek wealth or honor for his close ones, but rather hoped that they would live long. Guan smiled. Where am I overthinking? Actually, I am also selfish. I just don't want to end up lonely. Lu Jujia laughed. Everyone must die eventually, it's inevitable. True, let's talk about the Great Sun Divine sect instead. Who knows when they might attack? Really? The Broken Sea domain is under the protection of the Holy Court. Could the Great Sun Divine sect really be stronger than the Great Cold Demon sect of yore? Lu Jujia frowned. Speaking of the Great Sun Divine sect, which had been a hot topic recently, even the realm of heaven and earth flying immortal had strongly entered into the consciousness of Supreme Sect's disciples. Various rumors all pointed to one thing. The Broken Sea domain was about to face an unprecedented threat, and the Taitsong dynasty situated there would find it hard to escape unscathed. Guan smiled. How about we make a bet? Guess whether the Great Sun Divine sect can defeat Sword Venerable Fudao. Upon hearing this, Lu Jujia instantly raised his eyebrows. I bet they are no match for Sword Venerable Fudao. Guan's smile stiffened. No, let's draw lots, decide the order of choice. I want. You itching for a spanking? Don't think just because you're old, senior brother won't dare to thrash you. Oh come on, the disciples are watching. What kind of example would that set? The prestige of the first disciple must be maintained. Don't make it difficult for the next generation's first disciple. The two began to bicker, laughter echoing endlessly. Mountains ranged in succession, and in one forested mountain, numerous pavilions nestled. A young man knelt in the courtyard, his face stubborn, his gaze fixed on the main gate. No matter how long you kneel, I will not hand over your ancestors' brocade bag to you. A woman's voice came from the gate. Why not? The young man gritted his teeth. My father and my grandfather's deep-seated vendetta. Are you really going to ignore it? They are also your descendants. Exactly for that reason, I cannot let you continue to risk your life. What's wrong with being immortal? Once you step into the world of immortal cultivation, no one ends well. Being immortal, when facing power, when encountering cultivators, we are just meat on the chopping block, at the mercy of others. The young man's voice nearly broke at the end. The mysterious woman inside the gate fell silent. After a long while, the mysterious woman spoke softly. The bloodline of the Yin family is deeply cursed. None of your ancestors had a good ending, not even my son, who did not live past 30. The deeper you cultivate, the worse the outcome. Yet still you persist? Perhaps the brocade bag left by our ancestor is meant to resolve this issue. It's useless. I don't believe it. Just give it to me, let me decide for myself. Someone has to try. The young man said sternly, his body trembling because he had been kneeling for too long. Emotions stirred, his chi blood was somewhat deficient. Clang, the gate suddenly opened, a brocade bag flew out, landing in front of the young man. Overjoyed, the young man immediately picked up the brocade bag, tore it open, and took out a piece of paper, tremblingly examining it. The paper bore 2 large characters. Resign. The young man felt as if struck by lightning, his eyes widened, and he was dumbstruck. Why? The young man murmured to himself, his hands involuntarily clenched into fists, and the paper was crumpled with them. His fingernails dug into his own flesh, blood seeping out, staining the paper in his hands. Chapter 392 The Sense of Intimacy of an Yuan. Why resign oneself to fate? Why? The youth trembled all over, his eyes filled with despair. Dark clouds blanketed the sky, as if destiny obscured the sunshine of his life, leaving no sight of hope. The mysterious woman in the building did not answer, nor did she offer any comfort. She had once felt the same despair when she came across those 2 characters. She did not resent that man either. After all, he warned her before he left. Yet she couldn't withstand her family's persuasion and got caught up in the disputes, leading to her descendants having to hide in the mountains, humbly lamenting the unfairness of fate. Just then, the youth suddenly felt a sharp pain in his palm, which frightened him into reflexively letting go, throwing the crumpled paper away. He instinctively looked at his palm, and saw many blood-red lines appear, quite ghastly. He seemed to realize something, raised his head, and fixed his gaze on the blood-stained paper ball before scrambling over to it. He picked up the paper, unfolded it, and to his surprise, found that the words "resigned to fate" had disappeared, replaced by 3 large characters. Supreme Sect. Supreme Sect. What does this mean? The youth murmured, frowning. He had certainly heard of the Supreme Sect, the legendary #1 sect above all dynasties. With his talent, how difficult it would be to enter the Supreme Sect. Suddenly, a figure appeared beside him. A woman wearing a black Taoist robe with white hair, yet a face that was young and comely. She was none other than the Princess of Tianwei, Si Yenner, who had once been engaged to An Hao. She snatched the paper from the youth's hand and scrutinized the characters. Her brows furrowed tightly, her eyes filled with complex emotions. "Weren't you the one who told me not to try to ingratiate myself with that elder? Why then leave a secret message for your descendants to go to the Supreme Sect? Did you know this day would come? Or were you worried about the safety of your progeny?" Si Yenner mumbled to herself, her tone complex, a mix of surprise, reluctance, anger, and resentment. The youth stood up, his legs weak. It took him a while to steady his stance. "Grandmother, what does the ancestor mean? That I should go to the Supreme Sect?" he asked nervously, his eyes full of anticipation. Si Yenner took a deep breath and said, "Yes, go to the Supreme Sect." The youth, overjoyed, turned to leave immediately. "Wait, do you even know where the Supreme Sect is located? How far away it is?" Si Yenner suddenly called out to him. The youth turned his head and said, "The Supreme Sect is so famous, I should be able to find out by asking around. With your pace, it will take 10 years to get there, by which time you might already be dead." Si Yenner stared at him, saying emotionlessly. Upon hearing this, the youth's face turned pale. Si Yenner turned her back and walked towards the attic, leaving behind a sentence. "Just wait, it'll take you to the Supreme Sect." The youth, with a look of delight, quickly knelt to thank Si Yenner. Meanwhile, An Hao was cultivating in the immortal dynasty, unaware of what his descendants were going through. He meditated on a cliff, facing a vast and magnificent waterfall, its thunderous roar deafening. Below was a lake as vast as the ocean, covered with a mist that made the place seem like a paradise on earth. A figure appeared behind An Hao, a woman in a white dress, gazing at him with eyes full of admiration. "An Hao, the immortal dynasty has issued a chief fortune bounty. Why don't you take part? With the support of the dynasty's chief fortune, your cultivation level will grow faster, much better than painstakingly meditating," said the woman in the white dress, her voice gentle and tender. An Hao, with his back to her, did not open his eyes, replying, "To seek the path of immortality solely through chief fortune might not be right. I believe more in the mana that I cultivate myself." The woman in the white dress smiled and said, "That's true. With your extraordinary talent, you can reach the pinnacle of the immortal path on your own. It's just a matter of time." An Hao did not respond. The only sound was the clamor of the waterfall striking the lake's surface. The woman in the white dress continued to watch An Hao, not finding it dull. After a long while, "Please return, fairy. Perhaps I misunderstood your intentions. In any case, I will never remarry in this lifetime. I once had a wife, but in pursuit of immortal cultivation, I've cut off our relationship, and I do not wish to become involved with another woman in more than just friendship." And Hao finally spoke, his tone calm but resolute. Upon hearing this, the woman's face subtly changed. She wanted to say something but couldn't as she looked at An Hao's back. She watched his silhouette for a while, eventually turning to leave. Only after she had gone did An Hao open his eyes, a look of melancholy in his gaze. "So many years have passed, are you still well?" An Hao murmured to himself. An image of a bright and playful girl appeared before him, her smile and glance, even after hundreds of years, unforgettable to him. A year later, near the Supreme Sect, in the forests, Si Yenner and the young man were on their way, with the young man carrying a large bundle that bent his back. He looked at his grandmother walking ahead and couldn't help asking, "Grandmother, why not teach me to cultivate instead? Otherwise, I truly might die of exhaustion." When the grandmother took out a flying artifact, he was stunned, never imagining she was so powerful. He had also questioned his grandmother why she hadn't stepped in to save his grandfather, his father, to which Si Yenner replied that she was too far away to intervene in time. Regarding why she didn't seek revenge, it was for his sake too. The enemy was a powerful family with an immortal in their ranks, certainly not someone she could contend with. Learning the reasons, the youth's desire to cultivate and become an immortal grew stronger. He must become powerful. We're almost there. What need is there to cultivate now? Si Yenner's voice came from ahead. Upon hearing this, the youth was instantly overjoyed and quickly hastened his pace. He began to inquire about his ancestors' relationship with the Supreme Sect. This time, Si Yenner did not hide the truth. Your ancestor, named Enhao, was the foremost talent in the world, and now he is venturing in an even more distant realm. He is the pride of the Supreme Sect. As Si Yenner spoke, a wistful expression crossed her face. She remembered Enhao's spirited visage. She harbored no resentment for Enhao's decision. After all, it was her own heart that had stirred first, not to mention that before leaving, Enhao had left behind several treasures. It was for this reason that the Si family, following their downfall, could survive with her descendants. When the youth heard the name Enhao, it seemed somewhat familiar, but as he listened to his grandmother praising him, the youth did not feel excited. Instead, his expression grew even more somber. The stronger Enhao was, the more the youth despised him. What of it if he was the world's most talented? In his eyes, he was just a negligent forebear, probably not all that impressive. The two continued their conversation as they moved forward, with most of the speaking done by Si Yenner, while the youth said very little. As they walked, figures appeared in front of them. The first to enter their sight was a man riding a demon bull, followed by a woman. Si Yenner had long since sensed their presence, with one of them being a nascent soul realm cultivator, undoubtedly a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Therefore, she wanted to approach these two to lead them into the Supreme Sect. She quickened her pace, with the youth following closely behind, his gaze fixed on the blood prison great saint. What a magnificent bull! Guan patted the head of the blood prison great saint, signaling it to stop. An Exian turned her head to look and quickly set her sights on the youth, her brows furrowing soon after. In Yuan Energy Cultivation Realm, Level 117/25/5000. Guan looked at the youth's lifespan without a change in expression, but internally he felt puzzled. Why was his lifespan so short? He came here with an Exian because he had calculated the arrival of Si Yenner and the other person. He also predicted the plight of Enhao's descendants, but upon truly encountering in Yuan, he was still surprised. His lifespan was unreasonably short, especially considering that there was no sign of illness. Si Yenner approached an Exian and, with a salute of her hand, said, "My name is Si Yenner, from the former land of Tianwei. May I ask if you two are disciples of the Supreme Sect? You're called Si Yenner." And Zin's eyes widened in shock as she asked. Si Yenner inquired with suspicion, "Have you heard of my name, miss?" "Of course I've heard. My senior brother mentioned you to me." "Your brother is..." Si Yenner too became excited, hearing Enhao mention his sister. An Exian did not conceal her identity, and upon revealing it, the two women embraced each other as if reuniting after a long parting. And Yuan stared blankly at an Exian, not expecting this woman with the grace of an immortal to be his ancestor's junior sister. So young, she looked about his age. Who is this? Si Yenner turned her attention to Guan, asking with curiosity. An Exian hastily introduced. "This is my master, although not the same as the one shared with my senior brother. He is my second master." Si Yenner suddenly understood. She, of course, knew who Enhao's master was, the renowned sword Venerable Fudao. This fact she had not mentioned to Yuan. Guan smiled and asked, "You aren't here looking for Enhao, are you? He has already joined the Immortal Dynasty, and even a Mahayana cultivator would need decades, even 100 years to reach the Immortal Dynasty from the ends of the earth." The Immortal Dynasty. Si Yenner immediately lapsed into a daze. She had naturally heard this name, as the Yuanshu ancestor who opened reincarnation came from the Immortal Dynasty. Has he already reached such a state? Si Yenner suddenly felt fortunate. Fortune that she had not been overbearing in the past. Had she clung to him in the Taitsong continent, would Enhao have achieved such greatness? Come back to the valley with us first. We can talk more after a few days' rest. Guan's words matched Si Yenner's intentions. She swiftly bowed in thanks and gestured for An Yuan to speak. An Yuan, just coming to his senses, quickly bowed in salute. The group headed towards Mystic Valley. An Xian and Si Yener walked arm in arm at the front, while An Yuan cautiously followed behind the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint turned its head to glance at An Yuan, a strange look in its eyes. An Yuan felt uneasy all over, watched by the demon. Could it be wanting to eat him? He indeed looks quite a bit like An Hao. It's just that the talent is far inferior. I didn't expect the offspring of such a genius to be so disappointing, the Blood Prison Great Saint remarked. Upon hearing this, an irate An Yuan glared, but he dared not retort. Guan slapped the Blood Prison Great Saint on the back and said crossly, "Why speak so of the younger generation? Do you believe I could make you worse off than him?" The Blood Prison Great Saint, shivering all over, did not dare to speak further. An Yuan curiously looked at Guan, feeling a newfound fondness for him. For some reason, from that first glimpse of Guan, he felt a great liking for him, sensing that his smile was so gentle, bringing him a feeling of kinship. Guan waved An Yuan over, beckoning him to stand beside the Blood Prison Great Saint. Chapter 393. Xingtian. Terror descends. Do you want to know how I met your ancestor and how? Guan looked at An Yuan with a smile and asked. An Yuan felt uncomfortable, knowing his ancestor was still alive and very powerful. He was full of hostility towards An Hao and did not want to listen to anything about An Hao. However, he could not afford to defy Guan, and had to nod in agreement. It was an internal strife within the Supreme Sect. Guan looked ahead, his tone full of emotion. His voice had a compelling power, letting An Yuan vaguely see a certain scene. It was a grand hall where Guan met An Hao. The one walking ahead, Si Yener, was also listening attentively, curious about An Hao's experiences in the Supreme Sect. An hour later, the group arrived at Mystic Valley, and Guan asked Jiang Shi to help settle them. At present, Lu Jiujia had already begun to delegate authority to Jiang Shi increasingly. Among the disciples in the valley, Jiang Shi had the highest cultivation level and deepest seniority. The disciples all respected him. In the depths of the night, inside the house, Si Yener sat opposite An Xian, taking out a blood-stained piece of paper left by An Hao. Looking at it made An Zin's heart ache for An Yuan. On the way back, she had already learned about the plight of An Hao's descendants and was quite indignant. I don't know what this paper means, can you help me understand? Si Yener asked nervously, also unclear about what she should do after arriving at the Supreme Sect. An Xian saw the words Supreme Sect, and knew that An Hao wanted his descendants to seek Guan's help in desperate times. She pondered and asked, "What is your request?" Hearing this, Si Yener felt hopeful and said, "I don't expect much. I only hope to change the destiny of that boy An Yuan." An Xian thought for a moment and suggested, "Let's keep An Yuan in Medicine Valley then. I will take care of him, and you can also stay and join the Supreme Sect, but you must not meet him." She knew Guan's character. Being able to keep An Yuan was already good enough. She couldn't keep the whole family in Medicine Valley, especially since the Supreme Sect was vast, and for someone of Si Yener's cultivation level, joining was not difficult. Upon hearing this, Si Yener immediately grabbed An Zin's hand in gratitude. She didn't doubt An Zin's words. An Xian was also a disciple of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, and naturally could meet Sword Venerable Fu Dao. "About my relationship with my master, do not speak to others about it," An Xian said earnestly. "He does not wish to be disturbed, and I am just a disciple of Medicine Valley, and do not want to be involved in troubles." After speaking, she suddenly realized why Guan liked to say these words. Not bad, quite a feeling. Si Yener immediately promised not to divulge it. For Si Yener, that night was one of relief, and for An Yuan, it was filled with hope. As the moon set and the sun rose, in the early morning, An Yuan was drawn by the commotion in Medicine Valley. He stepped outside the house and saw nearly 300 disciples practicing drills together. It was quite spectacular. Si Yener was also watching from the side. When the drills finished, she bid farewell to Guan, preparing to leave since she had more than just An Yuan as a descendant. "If life gets tough, bring your offspring in return," Guan said gently. "I still have some influence in the Supreme Sect, and can help you sort things out." He would not deliberately aid those with whom he did not have a close karmic connection, but if someone came to him for help, he wouldn't refuse. Moreover, he foresaw that the family offended by the infamily would have further entanglements of gratitude and resentment, a long line of fate. Si Yenner hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement and thanked Guan, watching her departing figure. Guan thought about seeing her in the past as sword venerable Fu Dao. At that time she did not have this weathered air about her, lively and playful like Zhen Qin, and seemed like a joyous nemesis with An Hao. Times and circumstances change. Guan mused, his gaze then shifting to An Yuan. He probably understood why An Yuan had a short lifespan. An Yuan's ancestors had all died due to misfortune, especially in recent generations, dying ever so prematurely. Everything was related to the heritage An Hao had received at the Holy Court. Heavenly Dao heritage. This made Guan think of the Heaven sect, which had also received the Heavenly Dao's heritage, and then had to abandon all emotions after gaining great power. Could it be that the descendants and close friends of the Heaven sect had all died due to misfortune? Such a Heavenly Dao heritage was too malicious. Why was it so? Could it be that it intended to make the Heavenly Dao cultivators desireless, and without emotional weaknesses? Guan did have a method to try, which was to sever the cause and effect between An Yuan and An Hao, making the two unrelated. Looking at extremes in lifespan, An Yuan was also talented, just not as much as An Hao. He wasn't in a hurry to change An Yuan's fate just yet, hoping to let the boy settle for 2 years first. His intention for revenge was too strong, highly resembling the early days of Su Han. Days passed by one after another. After joining the Mystic Valley, An Yuan received the cultivation techniques from Jiang Shi. Although he could not become strong quickly, he finally saw some hope. One night, An Yuan had a heart-to-heart talk with Jiang Shi. The two had similar fates, both carrying deep-seated hatreds. The difference was that An Yuan was also trapped in destiny, which made Jiang Shi feel very sympathetic and decided to give him a hand. Jiang Shi took An Yuan as his disciple and taught him all he knew. Guan did not stop them, hoping they could redeem each other. Until one afternoon at the end of autumn. I've decided. An Yuan suddenly stood up, his face firm as he looked towards the distant sky. Sitting by his side, Jiang Shi looked at him in surprise, not knowing why the boy was so agitated. The master and disciple were on a mountaintop, overlooking the magnificent landscape afar. An Yuan, with great ambition, shouted loudly, "I want to surpass An Hao. From now on, I'm not called An Yuan. My name is An Shengtian." Boom! Thunder rumbled in the distant clouds as if the heavens were responding to him. Jiang Shi looked at An Shengtian, feeling a shiver in his spirit from an unprecedented aura radiating from him. He had never met An Hao, but had heard of his legend. That was a cultivator said to have the highest talent. This boy's ambition. A smile appeared on Jiang Shi's face. He was about to speak when a loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. "The strongest man in the Broken Sea domain, Holy Sword of the Holy Court, show yourself. If you do not appear, I will suppress all living beings in Broken Sea domain with one palm." The voice was immensely domineering and filled with oppression, startling An Shengtian and Jiang Shi as they looked up, both opening their mouths in disbelief. Above, the dark clouds churned, and an immensely majestic figure appeared on the horizon. Full body obscured, only a golden breastplate visible, which was larger than any mountain between heaven and earth. It was as if a demon god from beyond the world was peering at the mortal spirits within. The sense of oppression chilled An Shengtian and Jiang Shi down to their spines. Not just them, the entire Taitsong continent, the entire Broken Sea domain, all living beings who saw that majestic figure felt fear. What kind of existence was this? Could it be an immortal? At the third Medicine Valley, Guan walked downstairs, and Ji Xiaoyu also stepped outside. Looking at the figure on the horizon, her brows furrowed. "Where are you going?" Ji Xiaoyu called out to Guan, "I'm going to see Mystic Valley, worried about the disciples." Guan replied over his shoulder, then quickly walked toward the transmission array platform. Chapter 394. How can he be so strong above the sea of clouds? A man clad in golden battle armor stood proudly. He had a strapping figure, and exuded an aura of domination. Clutching a long spear, his golden armor radiated a brilliance that reached thousands of meters. Looking above his helmet, the stars scattered across, and the universe dazzled. He appeared as if he was amidst the universe itself. Looking downward, he could see the vast ocean with continents appearing as mere pebbles under his feet, so insignificant. His gaze locked onto the Taitsong continent, filled with a fighting spirit. He hailed from the immortal dynasty, known as Autumn Evening Immortal Lord. Upon closer inspection, his left hand was held aloft, and within the palm was a city with numerous cultivators above it, tinier than specks of dust. Broken Sea Domain City, Qingsongzi, whose cultivation level had reached the 7th layer of the carefree primordial immortal realm, looked up at Autumn Evening Immortal Lord with eyes filled with fear. This domain master of the Broken Sea had never felt so weak. He who ruled over all beings in his domain now felt only panic, unable to maintain the demeanor of a domain master. What do? We can't escape at all. What realm is this guy in that he can suppress us all with a single palm? Autumn Evening Immortal Lord, I've heard of his legends. He surpassed the carefree primordial immortal centuries ago. In his youth he was unrivaled among his peers. The immortal dynasty is too presumptuous. Aren't they afraid of Xingtian coming back? We should have eradicated the immortal dynasty long ago. The successive Shengshens were too benevolent. Cultivators in Broken Sea Domain City discussed anxiously as despair spread throughout the city. Autumn Evening Immortal Lord did not glance at the city in his palm. His focus remained steadfast on Taitsong continent, waiting for the Holy Court Holy Sword to make a move. If he could slay the Holy Sword, he would gain immense chi fortune. He had investigated. The Holy Court Holy Sword had not received the chi fortune of the Holy Court, making him an easier target without the protection of the chi fortune of the Holy Court. He patiently waited as he had set a deadline in his mind. If the Holy Court Holy Sword did not appear by the time, he would have no choice but to annihilate the Broken Sea domain. For him, a born immortal spirit, slaying numerous beings did not evoke any guilt, just as humans may feel disgust but rarely guilt when stepping on a horde of insects. All beings within the Broken Sea domain could look up and see his immense projection. This was a divine skill with immense oppressive force, aimed to crush the spirits of the masses and kill any intent of resistance. Facing his figure that seemingly dwarfed the heavens and the earth, most beings felt intense fear. Even if they thought of fleeing, they didn't know where to go. It seemed wherever they flew, they couldn't escape from beneath the feet of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord. This was a sensation of despair like facing the vast heavens. In the Supreme Sect, within Mystic Valley, Jiang Shi and Shengtian returned to the valley, and the disciples surrounded Guan, extremely tense. In such times, they could only rely on Guan, hoping he could comfort them. Don't worry, the Supreme Sect is full of experts. Moreover, Sword Venerable Fudao is here. If someone provokes Sword Venerable Fudao, how could he tolerate it? Guan spoke, alleviating some of the disciples' tension, but some still harbored concerns. Master, is Sword Venerable Fudao really still here? Although there is indeed a vast sword intent on the heavenly repair platform, he hasn't made a move in many years. A disciple said worriedly, immediately causing other disciples to echo his sentiment, and panic spread once again. Guan continued to comfort them verbally while considering in his heart how to deal with this Tao Void mysterious immortal. How dare this guy show such a form and openly challenge him in front of everyone? Then Guan must also defeat this man assertively in front of all beings. It's been too long since he last acted. It's about time to remind the disciples of his existence. This time he wouldn't use swordsmanship, opting for something more spectacular. After calming the disciples, Guan turned and walked toward the transmission array platform. When he teleported to the third medicine valley, as soon as his right foot touched the ground, he began to unleash his divine skills. Ji Xiaoyu first turned her gaze towards him, but a moment later, she was captivated by the anomaly in the sky. Rolling dark clouds spun violently, and a massive wind surged between heaven and earth as an immense oppressive force descended. Countless beings instinctively looked up only to witness a moment they would never forget. The sea of clouds in the sky formed a cyclone that kept rising as if intending to sweep into outer heaven. As the remaining clouds ascended, more of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's majestic figure was revealed. However, this time, the beings did not fear his figure because a yet larger presence appeared. That was the sky's zenith. A huge disk, swirling with gray mist, expanded while rotating, quickly overshadowing the top of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's head. Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's true form looked up as his immense projection did likewise, his face showing fear. The ultimate primordial disk. This was a great divine power inherently possessed by the primordial ultimate body, supremely overbearing. Guan had never used this great divine power in reality before. As the ultimate primordial disk began to coalesce, the vast oppressive force engulfed Autumn Evening Immortal Lord, leaving him unable to escape. How is this possible? What is his cultivation level? Autumn Evening Immortal Lord thought with a pounding heart. He was a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal, and the Holy Court Holy Sword had never demonstrated the power of a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal in the reports from the Immortal Dynasty. The Holy Sword's strength was regarded as between the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma and a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal. Even if it reached the level of a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal, it shouldn't surpass his own. He was a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal of the 7th layer. But right now, he finally realized how terrifying the cultivation level of the Holy Court Holy Sword was. Not even a divine thought true immortal could possess such exaggerated oppressive power. He could not escape, nor could he speak, and even his divine sense and primordial spirit could not leave his body. Fear and despair swiftly occupied his heart, and his eyes were full of terror. Under his gaze, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman successfully condensed, and the gray disk was covered in dense patterns, as if it hid a vast world, awe-inspiring to behold. The projection of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was immensely large, towering over everything, making all else seem insignificant, yet under the ultimate body of the primordial talisman, he appeared less so. The ultimate body of the primordial talisman seemed to cover the entire great heavenly spirit land. In truth, it only covered the sky of the Broken Sea domain. Guan had used a small trick. In the eyes of the beings in the Broken Sea domain, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman indeed seemed as vast as the great heavenly spirit land, creating a terrifying visual impact. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor appeared from thin air next to Ji Xiaoyu, looking up in amazement. What kind of divine power is this? The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was filled with fear. He had heard of Sword Venerable Fudao's existence, but his divine sense had swept through the supreme sect without finding him. He thought Sword Venerable Fudao had been scared off. Now it seemed that their cultivation levels were too different, and he simply couldn't detect where Sword Venerable Fudao was, or who he was. Perhaps Sword Venerable Fudao had appeared before him, and he had failed to see through him. The thought made him shiver with dread. Standing beside him, Ji Xiaoyu did not respond. She too had never witnessed this divine power, and her heart was filled with shock. Just how powerful was Sword Venerable Fudao? She had already recalled memories from her past life, where in the 7-star spirit realm, Sword Venerable Fudao's demonstrated strength was far less than it was now. She had then looked forward to Sword Venerable Fudao's future, but now, it seemed she had underestimated him. Back then, she had unleashed the power of a primordial Taoist talisman, with her true self's consciousness returning. If her true self had misjudged, didn't that imply that Sword Venerable Fudao's Tao level was stronger than her true self's? Her feelings became complicated. If they felt this way, what about all living beings? What is that? My heavens, am I dreaming? Could it be that heaven is angry? It's Sword Venerable Fudao. It must be him. He's still in the Supreme Sect. Why isn't Sword Venerable Fudao displaying Sword Tao divine skills? Isn't this divine power stronger than the Sword Tao? Look at that guy, he's scared stiff. Ha ha ha, daring to challenge Sword Venerable Fudao is truly seeking death. The Supreme Sect was abuzz, everyone revitalized, and the beings of the Taitsong continent were also excited, shouting the name of Sword Venerable Fudao. For the countless beings of the Broken Sea domain, it was merely a shock. Is this the capability of the Holy Sword of the Holy Court? If heaven had power, would it not be like this? It's been many years since anyone dared to challenge me. This is the ultimate body of the primordial talisman. Feel the power of the Tao. A hoarse voice echoed through the world, laden with oppression. Hearing this voice, all beings were electrified. Yu Yingying looked towards Guan from afar, seeing his shocked expression, and she was filled with confusion. Alexian was also looking at Guan, and her heart was full of admiration. Compared to her master, her acting was still too poor. At the same time, she was overwhelmed. Was this truly her master's power? Little did she know, Guan hadn't even used his full strength. He had even suppressed his aura to the 9th layer of the divine thought true immortal realm, giving others a glimmer of hope to continue sending people to their doom. Yet even so, Ji Xiaoyu felt he was beyond a divine thought true immortal, and perhaps even a usual free immortal could not match him. Boom! A deafening roar erupted, rendering the beings temporarily deaf, which didn't pain them but merely left them unable to hear. Countless creatures watched the vast ultimate body of the primordial talisman descend, as if witnessing a divine spectacle. Guan opened his mouth in disbelief, staring at the sky as the strong wind swirled his robes. With a thought, he allowed the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor to speak, nothing more. No. Elder. I was wrong. Give me a chance to atone. Once the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor realized he could speak, like grasping a lifeline in water, he yelled hoarsely, his voice echoing throughout the Broken Sea domain. Under Guan's suppression, beings outside the Broken Sea domain couldn't hear, but the already deaf beings of the Broken Sea domain distinctly heard the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's hoarse scream. Guan was establishing his authority among the beings of the Broken Sea domain, yet he also wanted the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court to underestimate him. No matter how much the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor begged for mercy, the descent speed of the ultimate body of the primordial talisman suddenly decreased. Eventually, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman landed above the head of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Almost instantly, the projection of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was annihilated, and his true self felt an incredibly terrifying suction force. The main city of the Broken Sea domain he held was yanked out, crashing into the ocean, leaving the cultivators there wide-eyed. They would never forget this scene in their lifetimes. How could he be so powerful? Qing Songzi muttered to himself, suddenly realizing why Sword Venerable Fudao had declined the offer of the Qi Fortune Fruit position, and why the Holy Minister had agreed. Chapter 395. Fame Shakes the World. The Apex Talent. The Supreme Primordial Great Disk hung high above, much like the highest and supreme Tao suspended above all living beings. The true form of Immortal Lord Qiushi was drawn into the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, so filled with despair and helplessness, devoid of any means of resistance. As he disappeared into the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, the rumbling of heaven and earth continued unabated, causing the entire Broken Sea domain to tremble as if the apocalypse had arrived. Moments later, a prompt appeared before Guan's eyes. You have successfully slain Immortal Lord Qiushi, Tao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm Level 7. 340,876 years of lifespan. Not bad. It saves half a month's labor. Although Guan thought this, the look of shock remained on his face. That was his belief. The acting had to be thorough. The Supreme Primordial Great Disk did not vanish immediately, but continued to hang in the sky for the adoration of all beings. Because the Supreme Primordial Great Disk was so immense, the patterns on it were so clear to all beings. Those images seemed to record ancient myths, which left the beings in awe. After a long while, the wind between heaven and earth began to calm, and a majestic gray fog emerged around the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, drowning it in splendor, and the sky darkened. Only then did the beings regain their senses, instantly stirring with excitement. The oppressive might of Immortal Lord Qiushi had completely vanished. Did this not mean that Sword Venerable Fudao had slain him? Unbelievable. Immortal Lord Qiushi had appeared daunting and formidable, like the wrath of the vast heavens, and the mortal spirits could only tremble. Even with Sword Venerable Fudao's intervention, they had expected an earth-shattering great battle, yet it ended with one-sided suppression. Tyrannical. Invincible. Even though they could not see Sword Venerable Fudao in person, this was the impression that the beings formed of Sword Venerable Fudao from witnessing the battle. The sky gradually brightened, and the dark clouds began to disperse, leaving no trace of the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, as if it had never appeared. The Third Medicine Valley was abuzz with noise. All disciples were excited. Guan briskly approached Ji Xiaoyu and eagerly asked, "With your abilities, can you tell what realm Sword Venerable Fudao is in?" Ji Xiaoyu looked at him, offering no reply. Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor then took a deep breath and said, "His realm is not something you should conjecture, boy. Just be your mortal self, and do not involve yourself in great causes." Having said that, he vanished into thin air. Guan pretended to be astonished, but felt secretly thrilled inside. Yes, this is the feeling. Though you look down on me, I shall wait for you on the immortal path, but whether you can make me see you, that's still to be seen. Guan turned to Ji Xiaoyu and asked, "Was he unsettled by Sword Venerable Fudao?" Ji Xiaoyu nodded and said, "Indeed, Sword Venerable Fudao is powerful. I never expected there to be such a great cultivator hidden within the great heavenly spirit land. I even suspect." "Suspect what?" "Nothing, I'm going back to cultivate." As Ji Xiaoyu turned away and left, Guan cocked his head, feeling as though she too was provoked. Guan chuckled inwardly and then waited in place, feeling Shenzhen's presence, eager to hear how Shenzhen would boast about Sword Venerable Fudao. After 30 minutes, Supreme Sect remained noisy, and there were even many disciples kneeling at the heavenly repair platform in worship of the heaven-cutting axe. Inside the loft, Guan had a strange look on his face as he watched Shenzhen sketch the supreme primordial great disc on paper. He had a very subtle feeling that someone was spying on his path, and that person was Shenzhen. That is to say, Shenzhen's drawing concealed mysteries. He also pondered another question. If he could feel Shenzhen spying, then could the ancient beings depicted in her previous drawings sense her too? There was a time before when a drawing suddenly destroyed itself. Was that perhaps a warning? How about it? Impressive, right? Shenzhen saw Guan silent and proudly asked. Guan looked up at her and asked, "Aren't you afraid of displeasing Sword Venerable Fudao?" Shenzhen waved her hand and said, "How could that be? Sword Venerable Fudao guards the Supreme Sect. And now I too am a disciple of the Supreme Sect. He is practically my martial master. How could he mind such things? Don't forget the existence of the heavenly repair platform. No one in this world has a broader heart than Sword Venerable Fudao." "Well spoken, I like it." Guan then joined in the praises for Sword Venerable Fudao, catching Shenzhen in the act, who had long admired Sword Venerable Fudao. And today's battle had awakened the fervor hidden deep in her heart. It was not just them. Throughout the various oceans, continents, and islands of the Broken Sea domain, wherever there were living beings, they were discussing Sword Venerable Fudao. They preferred the name Sword Venerable Fudao over the Holy Court's Holy Sword. Moreover, the title of Holy Sword had been unilaterally announced by the Holy Court, and they had not heard of Sword Venerable Fudao accepting this title. The commotion at the Broken Sea domain was great, and even though Guan tried to contain it, the prior activities of the Autumn Evening Immortal Lord had already spread, causing various sects to start sending people to investigate. The impact of this battle was far from over. It continued to spread over the following years. The Autumn Evening Immortal Lord was no ordinary being. He was the highest realm faller of the Immortal Dynasty. When the news reached the Holy Court, the Holy Minister was greatly pleased. "Aha, do you see? This is why I agreed to him not accepting the Chi Fortune. When I met him, I felt he was extraordinary. Now it seems he might very well be a free immortal." The Holy Minister stood on the high steps, laughing heartily with great passion. In the hall stood holy gods, holy kings, and other beings of the third grade heavenly position. They were all immensely shocked. The Autumn Evening Immortal Lord was an age-old being with unquestioned power, yet he was easily slain. How can you tell he's a free immortal? The divine thought true immortal could also kill the Autumn Evening Immortal. Hee. The key is you couldn't see how he killed the Autumn Evening Immortal. Yang Xian Emperor must be furious now. I heard the Immortal Dynasty had previously also sent people to woo Sword Venerable Fudao. A free immortal? Who exactly is this divine personage? If he truly is a free immortal, his name must resonate through the ages. Could he be from outside heaven? But we need not investigate him. It would only push him towards the Immortal Dynasty. From his actions, this person has a compassionate heart for all living beings. Befriending him would pose no threat. The high ranks of the Holy Court discussed fervently, admiring Sword Venerable Fudao, which made the Holy Minister smile even more broadly. Their previous attempt to woo Sword Venerable Fu Dao had already caused discontent within the Holy Court, and with the court being suppressed by the immortal dynasty over the years, the Holy Minister felt deeply stifled. No, I must make another trip, the Holy Minister thought, his eyes twinkling. The immortal dynasty received the news just as fast. Because a Tao Void mysterious immortal from their ranks had died, the autumn evening immortal lord held a revered position in the Holy Court. His death thoroughly enraged the immortals, making Sword Venerable Fu Dao the most hated figure among them. And Hao was also oppressed because of this, but his life was not in danger. Before dealing with Sword Venerable Fu Dao, he was grounded and couldn't leave the immortal dynasty. The deterrent power of slaying a Tao Void mysterious immortal was indeed too strong, which prevented the immortal dynasty from retaliating immediately, instead sinking into a strange silence. When Guan and an Exian went to the mortal world peak, all the peaks were discussing this battle. The name of Sword Venerable Fu Dao resounded across the world once more, earning the admiration of countless beings. After all, though Sword Venerable Fu Dao was a holy sword of the Holy Court, he had not received the reward of Qi fortune. Without being under the Holy Court or the Immortal Dynasty, his capability to exhibit his own mighty prowess was truly awe-inspiring. Time flew swiftly. 3 years passed, and the end of the year arrived. Guan arrived in Mystic Valley and saw his disciples clearing the snow. His gaze landed on the mountain beside him wherein Shengtian was following Jiang Shi in cultivation. All disciples feeling Jiang Shi's preference for Shengtian. Lu Jujiao walked over and laughed. That kid, like me back in the day, truly spares no effort in teaching his disciples, holding nothing back. In his view, Jiang Shi did quite well. After all, Shengtian was a descendant of Hao. Regardless of Shengtian's achievements, he was at least forming a good bond with Hao. Guan nodded and said, "Call them both to my cabin in a while." With that he walked toward his own pavilion. Soon he arrived inside his house, rubbed his hands together, and then from his sleeves he took out a book. A radiant smile appeared on his face as he muttered, Xiantiani, could you write a bit faster? You're really slowing down." It had been decades since the last volume of Green Hero Travelogue was released, and over those years, Guan had been eagerly waiting. He could have divined the contents of Green Hero Travelogue by divining Xiantiani, but he had chosen not to. After all, life should have some expectations. Otherwise, time would pass very quickly. He sat in a chair and began reading the book. About 30 minutes later, Jiang Shi brought Shengtian to Guan's house. 20-year-old Shengtian had even more of Hao's demeanor. Their facial features were nearly identical, which was probably why Si Yenner had relented. There had been other descendants of the Yin family asking her, but she had refused them all. Both of them bowed to Guan. Shengtian curiously looked at Guan. Since entering the valley, this was the first time Guan had summoned him. Although he didn't think the nascent soul realm was very impressive, Jiang Shi always mentioned Guan was no ordinary man, which made him quite curious about Guan. Jiang Shi looked at Guan, his eyes concealing none of his admiration. Thinking back to that majestic scene 3 years ago, his heart surged with emotion. What loose immortal master must be Sword Venerable Fu Dao. No one in the entire Supreme Sect knew about Sword Venerable Fu Dao's hidden identity, yet Guan hid his cultivation. It was too coincidental. Shengtian, have you felt any discomfort lately? Guan asked, his face wearing a gentle smile. He had laughed aloud when he first heard the name Shengtian. This young man wanting to surpass Hao? How could that be possible? Not to mention the talent. Guan would never allow his proud disciple to be surpassed by a junior. No matter how many strong and talented individuals he had seen, Hao still remained his proudest disciple in Guan's heart. Even compared to the absolute geniuses in Lu Han and Long Zhan's memories, Hao lost to no one. He calculated the days, Hao was getting closer and closer to the Nirvana realm. After receiving the heavenly Tao inheritance in the Holy Court, Hao's cultivation had surged like floodwaters through a broken dam, unstoppable in its growth. No discomfort, master. Have you noticed anything? Shengtian asked nervously. The curse of the Yin family was still a shadow over his heart. He also feared suddenly dropping dead. Chapter 396. The origin of the surname Yin. figures upon the river of destiny. Watching the utterly nervous and Shengtian, Guan reined in his smile and said, "You can only live to 25. At these words, Shengshen's face drastically changed. Over the years, his cultivation level had risen rapidly, giving him hope, only to be told that he could only live to 25. How could he accept that? Jiangshi was equally frightened. He couldn't see any issues with Shengtian, but he wouldn't question Guan's judgment. He quickly asked, "Master, is there really no solution? Can't immortal cultivation change fate?" Guan answered, "There is, and it's to sever your karmic ties and bloodline with Hao. By doing so from now on, the family will forget you as if you were never born into their world, though those unrelated to the family could still remember you." And Shengtian was stunned, and Jiangshi was also scared. What kind of method was this? Jiangshi, recalling that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao, immediately calmed down, while Shengtian grew curious about the real identity of Guan. "Sever them. Then sever them, I am willing." And Shengtian gritted his teeth. Although over the years, under Jiangshi's guidance, his hostility towards Hao had waned, he still didn't acknowledge Hao in his heart. In his view, Hao's bloodline was far from a glory but a shame instead. Guan said, "Think about your deceased father, your grandfather, and also your mother, your sister. They will all forget you." And Shengtian opened his mouth but couldn't be as resolute as before. Guan had Jiangshi make tea for him. He wanted to see what decision Shengtian would make. Although Jiangshi wanted to interject, he understood the meaning behind Guan's instruction to pour tea. He was to stay out of it. And Shengtian clenched his fists, his mind filled with memories of time spent with his family. Unwilling? Why should he? Suddenly, Shengtian decided to accept his fate, just like the two words left by Hao. Resigned. But when he thought of the deep hatred born from his father's and grandfather's blood, he couldn't convince himself. How could he protect his living family members without strong cultivation? Just as Guan was about to lift the tea that Jiangshi had brewed, Shengtian said solemnly, "Sever. I must sever. I need to become stronger. Even if they forget me, I must have the strength to protect them. They may not remember me, but as long as I remember them, that is enough." A look of gratification flashed in Guan's eyes. At least for now. And Shengtian thought more about protecting his family rather than revenge. He didn't oppose Shengshen's desire for revenge, but he hoped that revenge wouldn't be the sole purpose of Shengshen's life. Guan drank the tea in one go and then stood up, his gaze falling upon Shengtian. The gold pattern on his forehead began to emit a golden light, as if an eye had appeared on his forehead, leaving Shengtian and Jiangshi wide-eyed. Boom! The scene around them abruptly changed, removing the pavilion's furnishings from their view, and they found themselves in a space that was surreal and eerie. The two instinctively turned their heads but could see nothing. They just felt an inexplicable panic. Guan picked up the fate-determining pen, pointing it at Shengtian. Shengtian had seen the fate-determining pen before and hadn't thought much of it, but at this moment it seemed so terrifying. Jiangshi felt the same, and looking again at the crown on Guan's head, he also felt its extraordinary nature. Could it be that his master was a treasure all over? His eyes were full of awe and fervor, wishing he could prostrate himself to his master right there. To cultivate under such a powerful figure, he felt so fortunate. "Are you ready, Shengtian?" Guan asked emotionlessly, causing Shengshen's throat to bob. "I forgot to tell you," Guan said. "The in your family is taken from my name. Even if the family forgets you, as long as you follow me, you will never be separated from the family." These words made Shengshen's eyes widen in disbelief. Sword Venerable Fudao. Shengtian felt like he had been hit by a pleasant surprise. Just as he was about to speak, Guan suddenly brandished his pen, and with a single stroke, Shengtian felt as though he had been struck by lightning, his entire body frozen in place. His complexion drastically changed. He wanted to speak but found himself incapable. He could feel something being shed from him, no being abandoned. An endless tide of loneliness overwhelmed him, and he fell into an unprecedented fear, his eyes unexpectedly brimming over with tears. At that moment, he was like a lost child, wanting to crouch down and hold himself. Your talent may not equal Hao's, But can your will surpass his? Gu An's voice reached him, like dawn's light chasing away the darkness from Enshengxian's inner world. And Shengtian looked up to see Guan and Jiangshi standing before him. Jiangshi looking anxious and seemingly trying to say something, but Shengtian couldn't hear a thing. His gaze rested on Guan, who was looking back at him calmly. For some reason he didn't feel distanced. Instead he sensed a kind of power. I cannot let down my master's expectations. And Shengtian gritted his teeth and forcefully suppressed the negative emotions in his heart, his body trembling as if he were in a chilly cellar. At that moment, Gu An's brow furrowed, and he shifted his right foot. Suddenly, an explosive burst of demonic qi enveloped the surrounding space. Jiangshi turned his head, looking towards Guan with astonishment. Guan remained silent, waiting for the threads of Enshengxian's fate to be stripped away. Aren't you afraid of the heavenly Taoist backlash, Taoist friend, for changing the fate of a person entangled with the karma of the heavenly Tao? An indifferent voice came from outside the demonic qi, startling Jiangshi into hastily turning around. How could there be someone else? Guan lifted his head, his gaze piercing through the demonic qi, crossing the void, to peer into another mysterious and dark space. Within it flowed a magnificent river, emanating radiant auroras, neither its source nor endpoint visible. The River of Destiny. A figure stood atop the River of Destiny. The figure shone with a silvery light, with only their silhouette discernible. Guan couldn't see through to their true form, but he could sense the other had locked onto his position. He had already employed the supreme concealing void technique, rendering the space around him impenetrable to peering eyes. Thus he wasn't worried. Moreover, the River of Destiny was incredibly distant from him. The other party was merely communicating, with no intention of descending into the great heavenly spirit land. Do you wish to warn or stop me? Guan asked. The voice of the silvery figure carried through. I intend to warn. I drift within the River of Destiny and cannot descend upon the world. You need not worry. I can see that you, Taoist friend, have stepped onto the way of cause and effect. One day we shall meet. I will await you by the River of Destiny. Guan seemed to think of something. His expression turned strange as he continued to ask, May I know the name of my Taoist friend? I have no Taoist title, only a common name, which is likely unknown. My name is Lu Qiuxian. Hearing the name, Guan fell silent. Jiangshi didn't even dare to breathe too heavily. The River of Destiny. The way of cause and effect. And Lu Qiuxian. Just the sound of it was terrifying. Is this the world of the immortal path realm? While shocked, Jiangshi felt an unprecedented ambition and resolve stirring within him. Chapter 397. The Escaper of the Heavenly Tao Lu Qiuxian. Guan fell into silence, his thoughts drifting to Lu Han within the reincarnation evolution. The turning point in Lu Han's life was the birth of Lu Qiuxian. With a talent that surpassed all others, the only thing Lu Han did before his death was to resurrect Lu Qiuxian in the River of Destiny. Listening to Lu Qiuxian's words, Guan could feel his vicissitudes. It was hard to imagine the long and desolate years he had endured alone. Having all of Lu Han's memories, Guan naturally felt differently about Lu Qiuxian. In his eyes, Lu Qiuxian was his son. Guan even speculated that the reason why reincarnation evolution came to be might simply be that it was originally real, just as the free immortal had to experience the reincarnation tribulation. The reincarnation tribulation of the free immortal would also lead to rebirth in different times and spaces, and the time span of reincarnation evolution was even larger, indicating a higher level of reincarnation tribulation. Guan reined in his thoughts and spoke. Thank you for the reminder, Taoist friend. My name is Menglang. Should I have the chance to visit the River of Destiny in the future, we can discuss and exchange Taoist sorcery. Above the River of Destiny, Lu Qiuxian, emitting a silver glow, did not immediately respond. He stood there like an afterimage, about to vanish into the torrent of destiny. After a while, all right. Lu Qiuxian agreed, and then disappeared into thin air above the River of Destiny. Gu An's gaze shifted to Shengtian, watching as he detached from the causality of the Yin family. Jiangshi's mind wandered, curious about Lu Qiuxian's cultivation level. Do not mention what just occurred to anyone including Shengtian, Guan suddenly said. Upon hearing this, Jiangshi hurriedly promised to keep the matter to himself. In fact, even without Gu An's instruction, he had no intention of sharing it with others. Witnessing such great power was his own fortune. How could he share it with others? Time continued to pass, and Sheng Tian was immersed in his own pain. Unaware of what had just transpired, he could only make out the vague figures of Guan and another. He gritted his teeth and persisted as the memories of the Yin family in his mind became increasingly blurred, which frightened him. He could accept the Yin family forgetting him, but he could not forget them. If both sides forgot each other, they would truly become unconnected, which was not the outcome he desired. Master! Martial Master! And Sheng Tian gritted his teeth, his cry not for the Valley Master of Mystic Valley but for in-house Master, Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Focus your mind. As long as you miss them enough, you won't forget. Gu An's voice followed. He had his own motives, deliberately tempering in Sheng Tian, hoping in Sheng Tian would hold family ties in the highest regard to prevent him from opposing En Hao in the future. In his heart, En Hao was definitely more important. Without En Hao, there would be no En Sheng Tian. Hearing Gu An's words, En Sheng Tian persisted. Suddenly, with a boom, blood flame abruptly ignited on him. His body curled up and trembled incessantly. Guan raised his right hand, and a dark purple medicinal herb appeared, promptly turning into powder that hovered in his palm, forming a whirlwind. Jiangshi couldn't help but fix his gaze on the whirlwind in Gu An's palm, curious about what Guan was about to do. Guan then swung his palm toward En Sheng Tian. As the palm struck out, En Shengshen's flesh instantly dispersed, leaving only a skeleton behind, which startled Jiangshi. Before he could utter a word, a dark purple mist surrounded En Sheng Tian, quickly enveloping him and covering the skeleton. Jiangshi looked intently, his hands clenched into fists inside his sleeves, his heart in turmoil, fearful that En Sheng Tian would die right there. The scene was too frightening. Flesh had dispersed in an instant. Could a person still live? The dark purple mist soon submerged the skeleton, billowing and slowly forming the outline of flesh. That is... Jiangshi's eyes widened, his expression one of astonishment. Guan remained expressionless. This was a 9th-tier medicinal herb, which he had acquired at great cost. It contained vast spiritual energy, making the molding of a flesh body not challenging, as long as En Shengshen's life force was controlled. If his soul had not left the body, it would be manageable. A new life and destiny, what path will you take from here? Guan wondered to himself, also contemplating whether En Shengshen's maximum lifespan would increase. If it could, this act would also be a method of defying the heavens and changing one's fate. Inside the attic, Guan sat in a chair, his eyes filled with disappointment. En Sheng Tian, Foundation Establishment Realm 8th floor 20/350/5000. His cultivation level had increased, as had his lifespan, but his maximum lifespan had not. That is to say, replacing bloodlines was not a way to change maximum lifespan. The concept of maximum lifespan became even more complex in Gu An's eyes. Luckily, En Sheng Tian was considered as having defied fate, breaking free from the destiny of the Yin family. Master, may I take him down? Jiangshi, holding En Sheng Tian and wearing an anxious expression, asked. En Sheng Tian was covered in a robe for modesty, and had not yet awakened. Guan nodded, and Jiangshi sighed with relief, signaling that En Sheng Tian was already out of danger. He immediately carried En Sheng Tian away. After leaving the house, he also closed the door behind him. Guan then began to ponder about Lu Qiuxian. After Lu Han was executed by the Black Profound Emperor, how did Lu Qiuxian survive? There must have been many stories behind it. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away from the Supreme Sect, carriages progressed across the mountains. Si Yenner was meditating on the floor of a carriage when she suddenly opened her eyes, frowning. What's going on, this feeling? What exactly is it? Why can't I remember? Si Yenner mumbled to herself, experiencing an inexplicable sense of emptiness within her. In the carriage behind her, a mother and daughter felt the same, clutching their chests in silence, sinking into an indescribable sadness, without understanding what was causing their grief. And Hao, who was far away in the immortal dynasty, sensed it too. He abruptly opened his eyes, his brows furrowed in concern. He looked towards the setting sun in the distance, his gaze filled with confusion. He sat meditating on a cliff, his body entwined with chains of golden light, unable to stand up. Who is trying to sever the karma with me? And Hao wondered in surprise, having delved into the way of cause and effect since he had received the legacy of the heavenly Tao. However, his understanding of the way of cause and effect was still weak, lacking the power to deduce its mysteries. As he couldn't figure it out, he attributed the penalization to the immortal dynasty, deciding not to dwell on it, and continued his path enlightenment. Oppressed by the immortal dynasty, he did not panic, knowing that as long as his martial master was there, the immortal dynasty would dare not act rashly. He was also astonished when he heard that his martial master had slain Autumn Equinox immortal lord, having met the man whose formidable aura had made a substantial impression. It was unimaginable to Hao that such a powerful being would be powerless before his martial master. He found that no matter how powerful an entity he encountered, how profound a force's heritage was, those seemingly invincible and unconquerable beings were like nothing before his martial master. He could not fathom just how strong his martial master truly was. He even looked forward to how the encounter would unfold if Yangxian Emperor, the current publicly acknowledged #1 under the heavens, were to face his martial master. He believed his martial master could also be the first under the heavens. Thinking of his martial master's strength, Hao cast aside his distractions, feeling a surge of fervor. He wanted to catch up to his martial master as soon as possible. As the days went by, New Year's Day arrived in the blink of an eye. At dawn, Mystic Valley began preparing for the festival. Shengtian was chopping wood in the forest, his hair tied high at the back of his head, revealing his stern features. A female disciple approached holding a teapot, looking at Shengtian hesitantly. "Senior brother, are you tired? Would you like some spiritual tea?" she observed Shengtian, her expression turning timidly coy. Shengtian turned his head with a smile. "Like ice melting away," he said with a laugh. "As a foundation establishment realm cultivator, how could I be tired? However, I cannot refuse junior sister's kindness. Just leave it there, and I will bring the teapot back for you." The female disciple was about to say something when the bushes rustled, and a white deer darted past them. A male disciple chased after it, not daring to glance at Shengtian and the female disciple, fearful of interrupting them. Shengtian looked up and couldn't help but smile, somewhat vexed but not wanting to bother her senior brother further. The female disciple resignedly placed the teapot down and left. Inside Mystic Valley, Guan stood shoulder to shoulder with Shenzhen, admiring the landscape of the medicine garden. "Now that we're here, tell me, why did you want to come and see this place?" Guan turned his head towards Shenzhen and asked. Shenzhen's gaze wandered, as if searching for someone. She murmured, "No, this isn't right." "What's not right?" Guan asked, puzzled. Ever since he had met her that day, he felt something was off about her, as though she was always in a daze. Recently, the presence of reincarnation around Shenzhen had been growing stronger, a sensation Guan had only ever felt around Ji Xiaoyu, which meant that Ji Xiaoyu was awakening memories of her past life. Shenzhen did not answer Guan, but instead, she began to walk away, in the direction of the woods wherein Shengtian was. Guan followed her, curious about what Shenzhen was searching for. Could it have something to do with Shengtian? Guan was perplexed, sensing that something strange was happening. When Shenzhen reached the forest, she coincidentally passed by the female disciple, who instinctively looked toward Shenzhen. Attracted by her extraordinary aura and veiled face, the disciple was so mesmerized it was as if she had seen an immortal, leaving her in a daze. Only when Guan walked past her did she snap out of it. Though curious about Shenzhen's identity, she dared not follow. To the new disciples, Guan's authority in Mystic Valley was paramount. Upon seeing Shengtian, Shenzhen's expression subtly changed. Shengtian seemed to sense something and involuntarily turned his head. When his eyes met Shenzhen's, he frowned, feeling an uncomfortable sensation. Shenzhen's pupils twinkled peculiarly, the corners of her mouth rising beneath her veil. "What's wrong?" Guan came up and asked. Seeing him, Shengtian immediately raised his hand in salute. Ignoring Guan, Shenzhen said in a strange tone, "Those who evade the heavenly Tao, variables," and Shengshen's frown deepened, suddenly feeling a chill that made him instinctively fear. Guan stood in front of Shenzhen and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" He reached out to touch Shenzhen's shoulder. Snap! Shenzhen suddenly grabbed Guan's wrist. Her gaze turned sinister, and she spoke coldly, "I'm fine, don't touch me." Demon Shore has developed hostility towards you, seeking to annihilate you. Do you wish to use lifespan detection on it? Chapter 398. The Lifespan of the Free Immortal. Demon Shore? Guan had never heard this name before, so he immediately chose to perform a lifespan detection on it. Demon Shore, Free Immortal Realm 9 Layers 58, 027, 612/500, 000, 000/1, 000, 000, 500 million years of lifespan, with a maximum lifespan of 1 billion years. Why did this person harbor animosity toward him? Could it be that Shenzhen was so bizarre because he was being manipulated by this person? Guan looked at Shenzhen standing before him, feigning astonishment. Shenzhen slightly tilted his head to look at Guan and asked, "Is there a problem?" Although the voice was Shenzhen's, the tone was definitely not. Guan pretended to be tense and replied, "No." Shenzhen let go, then took a step to the side, casting a deep glance at Shengtian that made his heart unease. Shenzhen smiled and then turned away. Shengtian took a deep breath, moved to Guan's side, and seemed about to say something, but Guan raised his hand, signaling him to hold his words. Once Shenzhen had walked out of the grove, Guan's expression turned ice-cold. "Martial Master she." And Shengtian cautiously began, the look in Shenzhen's eyes just now filling him with dread, as if a natural predator had set its sights on him, even making him feel a major disaster was imminent. "It doesn't matter." Guan uttered 2 words, and upon hearing them, Shengtian immediately relaxed. The phrase "Martial Master" was enough, and Shengtian knew well that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao. Thinking back to the shocking Great Mixed Yuan plate from a few years ago, his spirit was immediately uplifted. With the Martial Master backing him, what was there to fear? His task was to diligently cultivate, striving to surpass and make his Martial Master proud of him. Guan patted Shengtian on the shoulder, encouraging him to continue. Shengtian looked at Guan's departing figure, and raised a hand to his own shoulder, chuckling softly. The upcoming spring festival remained lively. Although Guan was thinking about Demon Shore, he still acted naturally, actively celebrating with his disciples. Because of the intervention a few years ago by Sword Venerable Fudao, which greatly lessened the chaos in Taitsong continent, the recent spring festivals had been lively, especially for the disciples of the Supreme Sect, who on such days would rid their minds of worries and start harboring hopes for the future. Until late into the night. Third Medicine Valley in the attic. Guan sat at the desk, eyes closed, his divine thought frenziedly scanning the great heavenly spirit land. Unable to find a cause and effect similar to Shenzhen, he extended his divine thought into the universe. Though Demon Shore's cultivation level was inferior to his, being hated by someone was intolerable. Especially since the opponent hated his original self. He must die, to prevent future troubles. That night, the person with the worst mood within the Supreme Sect was none other than the strongest among them. Until the early hours, Guan finally located Demon Shore. The bastard was actually hiding within the silent destruction domain, and he was harboring a large number of evil demons under his command, clearly having some sort of plan. Guan stood up, left the house, and walked downstairs. Just as he was downstairs, Ji Xiaoyu emerged from the house and called out to him. "What's up?" Guan asked with a smile. Ji Xiaoyu approached him, sizing him up. Guan touched his own face and asked, "Is there something wrong with me?" Ji Xiaoyu stared into his eyes and said, "There's a sense of death about you. Have you been marked by something corrupt?" Guan feigned nervousness as he asked, "Really? Don't frighten me." He knew Ji Xiaoyu was not wrong in her feeling. Ever since being targeted by Demon Shore the day before, a causal bond had latched onto him, and was growing stronger. Guan had not dispelled the cause and effect on him, instead using it to trace Demon Shore. "Perhaps it's just my imagination," Ji Xiaoyu suggested, seeing his panicked reaction. She was puzzled inside. What on earth had happened to Guan? Although she had regained some of her memories, she was not the original self, able to only sense the cause and effect on Guan but not fully see through it. Always scaring me later when I go out, I'll be worried the whole way. Guan complained sullenly. Then don't go out. I'm puzzled. With your current resources inexhaustible, why do you still take charge of so many medicine valleys? You don't understand, this is life. To be human, one needs to do things to feel grounded. Humph, you're definitely hiding secrets. Don't you follow me? If I catch you, we are through. This is called privacy rights. Understand? Who gave you privacy rights? Granted by the heavens, do you dare to question it? The two began to bicker again, and after Ji Xiaoyu twisted his arm a few times, Guan finally fled. Ji Xiaoyu watched his retreating figure. Her brows furrowed deeply, her heart filled with worry, sensing that Guan was heading for great trouble. Guan headed toward the transmission array platform, along the way seeing Long Qing heading out of the valley. Going out to box again? Guan asked with a smile. Long Qing, who had been practicing with Shen Xinzi for years, had reached a horrifying level of physical strength. His qi blood was so powerful it even surpassed the void-crossing realm. Sadly, his body contained not a trace of spiritual power. Long Qing stopped in his tracks, faced Guan, and nodded slightly. He revealed a proud expression and said, "In half a year, my second martial master will take me out to hunt demons. I will be able to fight to my heart's content." Guan did not admonish him, merely nodding before expressing a few words of concern, and letting him go. Watching Long Qing walk away, Guan thought of Xingtian. The number of juniors in Medicine Valley had been increasing. He wondered what the scene would look like in 1,000 years. He smiled and continued towards the transmission array platform. Upon reaching Mystic Valley, he glanced at Lu Jiujia, and then left alone. He walked through the forest and gradually, a figure emerged from his body, a split of his divine skills. He allowed his split form to replace his original self, while his true form entered a state difficult for immortals to divine. The split form continued forward leisurely, while the original form leapt out of great heavenly spirit land, and descended into the silent destruction domain in an incomprehensible manner to living beings. In the depths of the silent destruction domain, where it was incredibly dark without stars, just swells of dense fog as if from the primordial chaos, suffocatingly oppressive. In the darkness stood a city, silent and hanging, resembling a giant armored beast. The surface of the buildings had sharp, towering columns, frighteningly ominous. Inside a grand hall within the city, demonic qi swirled like mist. At the center sat a pool over 30 feet in diameter, the surface a bright red. A figure was meditating in the pool. She was a white-haired woman, her body bare, with long hair cascading down her front into the waters. Her back was as white and smooth as jade, perfectly contoured. This was Demon Shore. She sat with her eyes closed, her face stunningly beautiful, except for a trace of wicked aura between her brows. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, exclaiming in surprise, "How did that boy's cause and effect get severed?" Lifting her right hand, she began to deduce. Just then, a hand landed on her fair shoulder. The touch made her Taoist heart tremble, and her face drastically change. "Why are you looking for someone?" A raspy voice entered her ears, chilling her to the bone. How could this be? Demon Shore was terrified to find herself completely immobile. Her mana almost frozen. She was a free immortal of 9 layers. How could she be so utterly suppressed? Could it be that the other party? Thinking of the legends, she resisted her fear and asked through gritted teeth, Who are you?" If you can see great heavenly spirit land with her eyes, could you also hear certain things with her ears? Guan stood behind Demon Shore, leaning slightly forward. Enshrouded with a gray aura, his true appearance concealed, he looked mysteriously formidable. Hearing his words, Demon Shore carefully recalled. She quickly thought of Shenzhen, who often mentioned a person. Sword Venerable Fudao. Her impression of this person was very deep, deeming him a possible free immortal. But she had not calculated against Sword Venerable Fudao. Though free immortals differed, she was one who had stepped into reincarnation tribulation, even if not yet successfully, but at least she was trying. Sword Venerable Fudao. Why? The longer Gu An's hand pressed down, the more frantic she became. In her perception, Gu An's Tao level was unfathomable, and compared to his, her way of cause and effect was insignificant. Guan could feel her fear. He deliberately gave her time to experience panic, fear, and regret. After all, Guan had been worried about her hostility all night. Killing her directly would be too lenient. He gazed down at Demon Shore, taking in her entire form. Nice skin, too bad she provoked him. Die. Guan's gaze intensified, as he furiously infused his divine thought into her body, impacting her soul, probing her memory. Demon Shore's body trembled, quickly settling into calmness. The grand hall fell silent. Even the swirling demonic chi halted. After a long while, Guan withdrew his divine thought, exerting a slight force with his right hand. Demon Shore instantly turned into ash, a shockwave spreading that caused countless tiny stars to appear in the demonic mist. Those were the shattered remnants of Demon Shore's Tao. Guan pondered over Demon Shore's memories, filled with emotion. So the reincarnation tribulation held such mysteries. Demon Shore was not only reborn herself, but also could choose a mortal for rebirth. Shenzhen was her choice, and she chose him after he had grown up. The reason for choosing Shenzhen was his innate talent for the way of cause and effect, and the uncertainties surrounding him. Demon Shore couldn't see why the uncertainties around Shenzhen originated, initially not even considering Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Until years ago, during the Supreme Chaos Disc, she confirmed that Sword Venerable Fu Dao was the uncertainty surrounding Shenzhen. She was surprised but not shocked. Until Shengtian appeared, using Shenzhen's body. She sensed its cause and effect and was instantly moved. She even wanted to usurp Shengshen's body. Thinking of the seductive she-demon becoming a man, Guan felt somewhat awkward. Fortunately, in Demon Shore's memories, she was always a woman. Otherwise he would feel awkward seeing Shenzhen in the future. You have successfully seized 61,098,203 years of lifespan from Demon Shore. Free Immortal Realm, 9 layers. A prompt appeared before Guan, seizing over 60 million years of lifespan in one go. Not bad. Worthy of a free immortal. Would killing Taoist hidden immortals in the future bring in hundreds of millions of years of lifespan? Guan looked forward with anticipation, but for now he did not want to confront Taoist hidden immortals. He would rather accumulate lifespan through medicinal herbs. It was safer to grow stronger unnoticed, and avoid much hatred. Chapter 399 Supreme Demon Realm. The memories from Demon Shore were vast, and the greatest help to Guan was in her understanding of reincarnation tribulation. Reincarnation tribulation indeed allows one to be reborn into different times and spaces, even into the past, but whether it's the past or the future, the main Bodhi's power cannot intervene. When the reincarnated being dies or exerts the power of the main body, it will be forcibly expelled back by the heavenly Tao. This reminded Guan of the time when Ji Xiaoyu in the Seven Stars Spirit Realm had used the power of a primordial Taoist talisman, and then quickly disappeared. It seemed she was expelled by the reincarnation tribulation. This deepened Guan's understanding of the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Tao more closely resembles a collection of rules, and the grand Tao, meticulous and domineering. Guan stopped pondering and turned her gaze toward the interior of the great hall. The hall was vast, yet there were many stark differences hidden within. Those huge stone pillars were also inlaid with numerous special spirit stones. This city was none other than Demon City. According to the memories of Demon Shore, there were many such cities in the Silent Destruction domain. Although there was no stronger existence above Demon Shore, all the demon cities were remnants of power left by the Supreme Demon Realm. The Supreme Demon Realm had once been extremely powerful, aiming to devour the great heaven and earth, but was later struck down by a mysterious entity that slayed the Realm Master, causing it to shatter. At that time, Demon Shore was not yet fully grown. 1,000,000 demons hid within the demon city. Although these demons seemed no different from the heavenly demons to the creatures of the great heaven and earth, there were also many powers standing within the Silent Destruction domain, and they did not trespass into the territories of the Blood Prison Great Saint. Guan decided to eradicate the root of the problem and eliminate all these demons. Whenever creatures from the great heaven and earth passed near the demon city, they never met a good fate. Demon Shore even dared to attack passing free immortals, though the free immortals had their own means to escape. The attacked free immortal was actually the ancient immortal emperor from the immortal dynasty. Approaching noon, Guan returned to the third medicine valley. He called up his attribute panel. Name, Guan lifespan, 650/1954, 210-604. Physique, mixed yuan refined void body. Cultivation level. Perfect Taoist hidden immortal realm. By slaying the million evil demons in the demon city, he gained nearly 500 million years of lifespan, making this trip an enormous harvest. Looking at his lifespan approaching 2 billion years, Guan felt wonderfully good. Of course, the most important thing was that he had removed a source of worry. As Guan encountered disciples along the way, he would smile and ask them a few questions, leaving the disciples surprised and honored. Now the number of disciples in the third medicine valley exceeded 3,000, and many, even those who had reached the foundation establishment realm, were willing to stay. As the supreme sect grew stronger, the treatment in the third medicine valley also continued to rise, even higher than that of many intersect halls. The disciples all respected Guan, not for his status or cultivation level, but because he treated each disciple without pretense. Even when they heard Guan enjoyed reading common books, they found him all the more approachable since Guan did not coerce the female disciples, and he was well regarded. When Guan arrived at his pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu suddenly came out, her expression strange. "What's wrong now?" Guan asked in feigned dejection. Ji Xiaoyu replied, "The death energy around you has disappeared. Who did you go see this morning?" Guan looked around, then took 2 steps forward and mysteriously said, "You scared me, so I had to ask Sword Venerable Fudao for help. He cast a spell to keep me safe, at the cost of 300 years of my lifespan." Ji Xiaoyu believed the first part of his statement, but she couldn't help but roll her eyes at the last sentence. Mortals will be mortals. With Sword Venerable Fudao's cultivation, how could he covet your 300 years of lifespan? Such a narrow view. It's laughable even when you boast. Ji Xiaoyu's words were venomous, unaware that this was exactly the effect Guan wanted. "You look down on me? In 30 years the East River may flow west. Do not belittle the poor. Change 30 to thousands. Get inside, I need to sort you out." Guan pushed Ji Xiaoyu into the house, and she did not resist, her face even breaking into a smile. An hour later, Guan came out of her house. Passing by, an ex-Sion winked and teased Guan, causing him to glare at her. Blood Prison Great Saint watched from under a distant tree, sighing sentimentally. "The master indeed leads a charming life. Once 1,000 years pass, I too must enjoy the local customs of the great heavenly spirit land." The spring breeze was caressing, the weather cool, and all living things were awakening their vitality. Even the clouds that shrouded the continent's sky had dissipated some. The supreme sect, basking in the prestige of Sword Venerable Fudao, continued to develop, but the struggles of the world grew more intense. Every moment, cultivators from the immortal dynasty and the holy court were fighting, with more and more territories and powers being drawn into the fray. Half a year sped by swiftly. Guan stood by the window, watching Longqing follow Shen Xinzi out of the valley. Apart from his previous experiences in the Juyuan world, this was Longqing's first time leaving the supreme sect. Although he was just practicing on the Taitsong continent, the sight of the young man's excitement gave Guan a distinct feeling. Feeling reluctant to let him go? Ji Xiaoyu's teasing voice came from downstairs. Guan replied, "How could that be? It just reminded me of some old friends." "Do you wish for the people by your side to accompany you forever?" "No, not really. If they leave, they leave. There will always be newcomers. I just feel nostalgic about how quickly they grow up. They become capable of standing on their own in the blink of an eye." "HM? What do you mean by newcomers? When I'm gone, there will be new ones." "What are you talking about? You haven't even outlasted the old ones yet." Boom! The attic began to tremble slightly. Outside the courtyard, the Blood Prison Great Saint, who was lying down asleep, turned his head. Such noise couldn't affect him. He was already used to it. An hour later, Guan, accompanied by an ex-Sion and the Blood Prison Great Saint, left the Third Medicine Valley. Today, they were heading to Tianya Valley. On the way, an ex-Sion spoke of the rising talents on the continent. From time to time, a peerless genius would emerge, and individuals like An Hao, Li Ya, and Wuju had already been forgotten by many, just as Guan had once been unaware of Xiantiani. Guan rode on the back of the blood prison great saint, holding a book in his hand, occasionally echoing an Xian. He also paid attention to the recent happenings in the world. Compared to the world hundreds of years ago, the standard for genius had risen. The cultivators and Xian referred to as geniuses had cultivation levels at the very least within the void-crossing realm. Hundreds of years ago, those of the void-crossing realm were considered great cultivators, old monsters. Nowadays, the Nirvana realm was no longer a secret known to just a few. An Xian spoke of the affairs of the world with no longing in her tone, only anticipation. She didn't want to go out, she just wanted to become more formidable than those people, to prove that staying by her master's side was the best choice. They chatted and laughed along the way, making the journey seem less tedious. When they arrived at Tianya Valley, they saw a group of young and proud cultivators. When Guan and his companions appeared, they attracted the attention of most. Guan saw LV Xian among them. It had been quite a while since he had seen LV Xian because every time LV Batian met him, he would mention LV Xian, making Guan occasionally keep track of LV Xian's progress. LV Xian had always been highly talented, and coupled with favorable circumstances, he now possessed the cultivation level of the mystic heart realm. He looked from afar at Guan with a joyous expression on his face. Guan nodded slightly towards him, then dismounted and walked toward Li Zuando's courtyard. An Xian went with the blood prison great saint to meet the three monkey demons. Guan proceeded into the courtyard, walked up to the table, and saluted Li Xiandao with a cupped fist. Following Li Zuando's gesture, he sat down. Li Xiandao appraised Guan and asked with a smile, "Why do I feel you've changed again?" Guan replied, "Perhaps I've aged a bit more?" As Guan grew older, his relationship with Li Xiandao became less about seniority and more like that of equals. It wasn't that Guan's outward cultivation was particularly strong, but both were several centuries old. Their life journeys were continually advancing. For those who lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years, people aged 500 to 1,000 years were considered peers, and this concept subtly influenced them as well. The two exchanged pleasantries, having not seen each other for many years. LV Xian was a supreme talent, and so was Li Xiandao, whose cultivation had reached the Mahayana realm. His Mahayana realm cultivation had outstripped LV Batian, who used to have a higher cultivation level than Li Xiandao but had failed his tribulation crossing, and remained at the 9th layer of the unification realm. Seeing Li Zuando's growth rate, Guan felt gratified. After all, they were comrades in the Tao, and how could he not be delighted to see his Taoist friend's progress? How many of his old companions would still be alive in 10,000 years? Guan was not sure, but he felt that Li Xiandao had a strong chance. Ancient emperors of tens of thousands of years were not unheard of. Just look at the Yang Xian emperor of the Immortal Dynasty, or Sheng Tian of the Holy Court, all of whom ruled for more than 1,000,000 years. After chatting for a while, Li Xiandao suddenly sighed. How many years will it take for the Taizong dynasty to become in existence like the Immortal Dynasty? The current chaos in the world is the best opportunity, but it's a pity we are not strong enough and might miss such a chance. The dynamic of the world changed day by day, but a dynasty's accumulation could not speed up as quickly, which made Li Xiandao anxious. If they missed this chance and a new ruler emerged, the Taizong dynasty would never have its day, at best dominating only a single region. Guan hadn't expected that Li Xiandao would actually harbor ambitions to replace Yang Xian Emperor and Xingtian. That was quite daring. Given Li Zuando's position of power, he surely understood the strength of the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. For others faced with such a gap, they would only feel envious or awed. As for replacing them, how could one even think of that? What if this chaos lasts for many years? This is a chaos that affects the entire world. Compared to the world at large, isn't the Taizong continent minuscule? Guan consoled. Li Xiandao looked at Guan and suddenly asked, "If there were a very powerful force that could aid me, but accepting their help could be a hidden danger in the future, what would you choose if you were the emperor?" A very powerful force? Guan silently reasoned, instantly realizing that the force Li Xiandao mentioned was a great sect, one of the leading sects in the mortal world. They chose the Taizong dynasty with the aim of establishing a relationship with Sword Venerable Fudao. If they could control the Taizong dynasty, they would have better grounds and opportunities to contact Sword Venerable Fudao. In their eyes, Sword Venerable Fudao had the qualifications to contend against the Yangxian Emperor. This was an indispensable force for them, aspiring to surpass both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. Without free immortals, how could one dream of unifying the world? After Guan had calculated the variables, he responded, "It all depends on what you truly want. Whether you wish for peace for the people of the world, or if you desire to realize your own ambitions more." Chapter 400 Immortal Legacy All Living Beings. Aspirations. Li Xiandao fell into deep thought, and Guan did not offer his own opinion, since both choices had pros and cons for the common folk. To remain content with the status quo would invite future crises. To be discontent would make life harder for the current and future generations. Guan's protection of the continent's beings already showed his benevolence, but he would not worry about the daily lives of all living beings every day. In any case, when asked about worldly affairs, Guan's role was simply to provide options. The ultimate decision was up to Li Xiandao, with whom the consequences lay. Li Xiandao was lost in contemplation, and Guan did not disturb him. His gaze drifted outside the courtyard. LV Xian, who was instructing someone in their cultivation, glanced towards Guan from time to time. When their eyes met, Guan could tell he was excited. Guan was suspicious, but he was not in a hurry. He would discuss it with Li Xiandao later. Usually, he did not need to spend much time on cultivation, so his pace of life was slow. He was not in a rush about most things. He could handle them one by one. Li Xiandao was not forever lost in his own world. He came back to reality and started chatting with Guan about Liya. Liya was the link between the two, and speaking of him prompted more conversation. After an hour, Li Xiandao suddenly said, "LV Xian has been talking about you non-stop. He specifically came back from overseas to see you, but insisted I come along. He wants to meet you but also fears you. What's that about?" Guan pretended to be puzzled and asked, "Why does he want to meet me? And why would he fear me? That shouldn't be. Have I treated him poorly?" While speaking, he looked curiously at LV Xian, who immediately smiled back at him. Li Xiandao stared at Guan meaningfully and said, "Guan, what kind of relationship do we have? There's no need to hide things from each other." Guan's expression alternated between clouds and sunshine. He took a deep breath and said, "To be honest, there are indeed hidden relationships behind me. If I reveal them, I will be punished, and those who know will die." After saying this, he patted his shoulder. Li Xiandao immediately squinted his eyes and chuckled. "Then let's not talk about it anymore." Inside, however, his mind was in turmoil. This boy. Upon reflecting, Li Xiandao had an epiphany. After Guan joined the Supreme Sect, Sword Venerable Fudao appeared, primarily active around areas close to Guan. He recalled Li Ya's sudden surge in strength over the years which he could never explain. Now it all made sense. It seemed Guan had arranged for Sword Venerable Fudao to look after Li Ya. Li Zuando's gaze towards Guan heated up, making Guan quite uncomfortable. Without guessing, Guan knew what Li Xiandao might be planning. He did not clarify. If Li Xiandao wanted to act under the name of Sword Venerable Fudao, he did not mind giving Li a pat on the shoulder. It depended on whether Li Xiandao knew his limits. "You go meet LV Xian. I don't have other matters here," Li Xiandao said, waving his hand with a smile. Guan stood up, bowed to him, and then walked towards the courtyard gate. Seeing him leave, LV Xian immediately greeted him, and pulled Guan towards a corner of Tianya Valley. "What's so secretive?" asked Guan. LV Xian whispered, "I have something great, and it won't disappoint you." "Something great?" Guan's interest was piqued, and he followed LV Xian away. LV Xian led Guan into a cave, his personal cave. He had crafted it here in Tianya Valley for fear of being seen by others, setting up very advanced restrictions. After entering the cave, LV Xian activated the restrictions, isolating it completely. Guan, feeling irritated, asked, "All this secrecy? Do we even have to hide it from His Majesty?" "Of course we do. If he knew, he'd go mad." LV Xian replied, his face displaying excitement. He then pulled Guan into the deepest chamber of the cave, walked up to a stone table, and took out an irregularly shaped stone slab that seemed like a large fragment. At first glance, it appeared plain with no inscriptions or runes. As he set down the slab, Guan suddenly understood something significant. His expression turned peculiar. The stone slab actually contained heavenly Tao destiny. Moreover, it was purer and more unsettling than the heavenly Tao inheritance obtained by an Hao from the Heaven sect. Its destiny emitted an indescribable oppressive force. Even Guan, the Taoist hidden immortal, felt an instinctive wariness and a glimmer of desire. He wanted to possess this heavenly Tao destiny. Yet, as this desire emerged, his wariness grew. Something was off. Guan looked at Lv and asked, "What is this?" He couldn't discern the cause and effect of this stone slab. This indicated that the origin of the slab was even stronger than the Taoist hidden immortal himself. At this realization, Guan almost wished Lv would take this item away and keep it far from him. What kind of thing was this? Trying to harm him? Lv, with an excited smile, said, "This is an inheritance I stumbled upon. You might not believe it, but this contains the legacy of a true immortal. A real godlike immortal, not something any immortal dynasty or holy court could compare to." Immortal legacy? Guan frowned. Neither Lu Han nor Longzhan had encountered a real immortal through the ages, although they'd met many who claimed to belong to the immortal or divine race. This had led Guan to always believe that the so-called immortals were merely more powerful beings. Lv continued, "The inheritance here only cares about talent, not cultivation level. I failed, but I think you should give it a try." "Why should it be me? There are so many geniuses." Guan hesitated to ask. Lv glared at him and said impatiently, "There are many geniuses, but the only one I have a good relationship with is you. I wouldn't give it to an Hao. You have supreme talent. Yet you can restrain your competitive spirit and live in seclusion here. I think you becoming an immortal would be better. At least you wouldn't threaten me, and you are indeed very good to your friends." Although Guan was curious, he felt that this matter was very dangerous, so he said, "Actually, His Majesty's talent is also very strong." After hearing this, Lv eyes brightened as he said, "You noticed it too? I thought I was the only one who knew." But don't tell him I know." "Ha ha ha, don't worry. He still thinks he's hidden himself well enough, not realizing that you are the deepest enigma. Think about it. It makes sense that Sword Venerable Fudao has always stayed at Supreme Sect, certainly to cultivate you. And Hao claims to be a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao, but he left and Sword Venerable Fudao is still here. That must mean he's just riding on your coattails." Lv chuckled, truly believing that Guan was stronger than an Hao. He had sparred with both of them, and Guan had given him the greatest sense of oppression and psychological shadow. He even believed that Guan was the #1 genius under the heavens. Hearing this, Guan fell into silence, his gaze fixed on a stone slab. Wait. Should he use his lifespan to simulate this? Guan thought it feasible as touching the stone slab directly seemed too dangerous. His mind made up, he immediately began to simulate. Simulating the inheritance will consume 1 million years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? That much? Guan hesitated, but looking at the stone slab, he was really tempted. Forget it. Take the plunge. While Lv continued his incessant chatter, Guan chose to continue, and then his consciousness entered a vast white space. Everything was blank, and below his feet, grass first emerged, rapidly expanding, and mountains appeared in the distance in all directions. The world was vast and the sky magnificent. Guan looked ahead and saw atop the mountains a dazzling orb of light, immensely gigantic, much larger than any mountain on earth. Within the light orb, there stood a towering figure, 10,000 zhang in height, adorned in armor, wielding a divine weapon, exuding a domineering aura that overwhelmed all living beings. Upon seeing this figure, Guan felt threatened, and he couldn't help but think of Black Profound Emperor, whom Lu Han encountered, and Annihilation God Emperor, whom Longzhan encountered. Their auras were similar. What realms were they actually in? Mortal spirit, having seen the heavenly Tao, why not kneel? A majestic voice rang out, but Guan did not kneel since it was just a simulation, and he asked, "What inheritance is this?" This is the heavenly Tao immortal position inheritance. To gain my approval, you must defeat me. Defeat. Guan was surprised internally. Facing this entity, LV surely had no chance at all, let alone even the desire to fight. Wait, LV said that the inheritance only looked at talent. Could it be that facing different inheritors, this entity's cultivation level might also change? LV failed against an existence a great realm higher than his own. He was now facing an existence a realm higher than Taoist hidden immortal. No wonder it felt dangerous, yet not hopeless. What is heavenly Tao immortal position? Guan pressed on. The other did not respond. Guan asked other questions, but no matter what he asked, there was no response. Forget it. Then fight to see if he had the strength to pass the inheritance test. Inside the cave, LV gestured to Guan, whose eyes suddenly became clear. What were you thinking about? I asked you several times and you didn't respond. LV said with dissatisfaction. Guan smiled and replied. Nothing much. I was just wondering whether there really are immortals and gods. He had passed the test. It had to be said, that entity was indeed formidable. Guan had to use dozens of moves to completely vanquish it. Yet even after the victory, Guan still hadn't figured out what the heavenly Tao immortal position was. But one thing was certain. The stone slab inheritance could see through his true cultivation level. If there was an immortal god power behind it, that power could also understand his true strength through this stone slab. The last thing Guan wanted was for his true cultivation level to be seen through. Forget it, I can't accept it. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Guan shook his head. LV eyes widened as he said, this is an immortal god inheritance. If you succeed, you will soar to great heights. Guan replied, I only trust the mana that I have cultivated myself, not that given by others. If so, I would certainly be controlled by others at the risk of my life and freedom. Hearing this, LV furrowed his brows. He had to admit, Guan made a good point. With that statement from Guan, the excitement in his heart began to subside. He looked at the stone slab on the table and said in a low voice, well said, perhaps failing the inheritance was a blessing in disguise. Chapter 401 Shapeshifting. You can keep it and accept the inheritance when you are strong enough. Guan stared at LV speaking earnestly, fearing that LV would forsake his greatest opportunity. At the moment, the heavenly Tao immortal position proved stronger than the Holy Court, the immortal dynasty, and even the silent destruction domain. As immortal, if LV missed it, finding a stronger chance in the future would be almost impossible. LV couldn't rely on stealing lifespan to become stronger like him. LV raised an eyebrow and said, what do you mean you think I can't rely on myself? You can't, at least not beyond this inheritance. Bullshit. LV erupted in fury, his terrifying aura exploding like a volcano, startling the entire Tinya Valley. Suddenly, Guan raised his hand and pressed it on his shoulder, instantly dispersing his aura. LV eyes widened. He knew Guan was definitely stronger than himself, but to be suppressed so easily, rendered unable to move. In that moment, he recalled a duel between them hundreds of years ago. This moment was exactly like that one. Guan looked at him calmly and asked, can you keep this stone tablet now? LV couldn't answer, he was unable to speak. Just blink if you agree. Hearing Guan's words, LV blinked frantically. Guan withdrew his hand, and LV breathed a sigh of relief, gasping for air. He looked at Guan with fear. He had learned from Li Xiandao that Guan was younger than him. Yet how had he cultivated to such a level? Compared to Guan, he was practically useless. Guan smiled and said, quickly put it away. When you become an immortal, if I can't catch up to you or have troubles, you'll be my backup. Upon hearing this, pride replaced the awkwardness on LV face. He patted his chest and said, naturally, I'm not your equal now, but I will surpass you one day, and then I'll have your back. Despite Guan not always being nice to him and often scaring him, wasn't that a form of care? In the past, when he initiated provocations towards Guan didn't mind, but if someone else treated him that way, he wouldn't be so merciful. And for Guan to return such an important inheritance to him, he was truly a man worth respecting. Lv stored the stone tablet, and Guan put his arm around his shoulder as they walked toward the cave entrance. By the way, your father misses you. When are you going to visit him? Him? That old undying man. If I visit him, I won't be able to help but kill him. Nonsense, blood is thicker than water. He hasn't tortured or mistreated you. Why talk of killing? If you really wanted to kill him, could he even stand up to you? He's hundreds of years old. Why act like a child? You don't understand. Of course I don't understand. I have no parents. Well, I envy you for that. Hey you brat, are you looking for a spanking? Just go back to the Supreme Sect and see your father. He treats me well and is always talking about you. My ears are almost calloused. If you go, I'll teach you a divine skill that will definitely enhance your strength. Really? I Guan never lie. And so, the two chatted and walked out of the cave. Back in the valley, Guan reverted to being an ordinary nascent soul realm cultivator, while Lv continued to exude the arrogance of a supreme youth. A month later, Lv came to find Guan, extremely happy, pulling him to drink because Lv had come to see him. Although the father and son were still not on the best of terms, their relationship had begun to improve. He was touched to learn from Lv that it was Guan who had asked Lv to see him. This youngster always seemed impatient with his ramblings, but in his heart, he remembered his father's love. Lv looked at Guan with eyes full of fondness, as if looking at another son. Guan didn't refuse, as he was just in the mood for a drink. Perhaps this was what meant by, with great power comes great responsibility. He not only had to save the world, he also had to help people handle domestic affairs. How fortunate the immortal cultivation world was to have me. Filled with self-emotion, Guan then competed with Lv in a drinking contest, and finally Lv was defeated. They were drinking high-level spiritual wine. It was alright for Guan to show off his strength a bit, especially since Lv was not considered strong in the Supreme Sect. Taking advantage of Lv drunken stupor, Guan went downstairs. Just as he descended, Ji Xiaoyu walked out of the room and said to him, "Come in." Guan shook his head. "No thanks, your strength isn't enough. Practice some more." Last time, to teach Ji Xiaoyu a lesson, Guan had played Go with her in her room for an hour and beat her decisively, which left her quite unconvinced, and now she would think about game strategies even during her practice. Just one more game, and you'll see if it's enough. Guan couldn't be bothered with her, and continued walking toward the distance. Ji Xiaoyu watched his back, took a deep breath, and thought about the cost of losing the game last time. It made her teeth itch with frustration. Before the game, they had made a deal that if she won, Guan would focus more on his own practice, and if Guan won he would pinch her face. Well, pinch it as it may be, he really dared to do it strongly. She looked at Guan's back, her mind full of confusion. Why in the world was his Go skill so strong? She finally understood why Nine-Fingered Divine Lord couldn't maintain his composure in the Immortal Path realm when facing Guan. After walking some distance, Guan leaped up, aiming for the outer gate city. It had been ages since he last strolled in the city. Today he might as well reinforce the sword intent on the heavenly repair platform. Too many people had been comprehending his sword intent, causing it to continuously weaken. Recently even a divine immortal of wondrous dharma had come to study it. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, another decade passed. That day, in the deep sea, hidden spirit palace, Guan lay on a chair on the open ground, holding the supreme secret records. The deep-sea dragon carp was beside him practicing the heaven and earth primordial skill. This skill had been upgraded, but being too complex was in fact not beneficial, and his disciples were all practicing it. How could he allow the deep-sea dragon carp's treatment to exceed theirs? Even among his underlings, Tian Yaoer was the most important. The deep-sea dragon carp opened its eyes, flew next to Guan and asked cautiously, "Master, I think I can shapeshift. What do you think I should turn into?" Guan turned over, his back facing it, and said, "Whatever you want." He didn't care if a male demon wanted to shapeshift. It didn't matter even if it didn't. The deep-sea dragon carp caught a glimpse of a picture on the supreme secret records, pondered for a while, then turned and left. 2 ancient hours later, Guan left. By the time he returned, It was already half a month later. Upon return, he was taken aback. He saw a figure at the entrance of the hidden spirit palace. For a moment, he thought he saw a naked creature from the demon shore. But this fellow was not a female demon. When the deep-sea dragon carp turned to look at Guin, its stunningly beautiful face flashed a captivating smile, its long hair reaching its waist, and its skin as white as snow shimmeringly. He swayed his body as he walked towards Guin. Guin immediately threw a robe at him. Put this on immediately. Guin really wanted to scold him. A male demon turning into a female form. What was this nonsense? Absolutely disgusting. The deep-sea dragon carp, hearing the dissatisfaction in his voice, hurriedly put on the robe, looking at Guin nervously like he had done something wrong, his exceptionally beautiful face filled with a look of grievance. Chapter 402 Future. After a bit of tossing and turning, Guin looked at the deep-sea dragon carp, robed in white, and still felt awkward about it. The deep-sea dragon carp had tied up its hair, giving off the impression of a woman disguised as a man, because since it had shapeshifted, it could not change its appearance again. It could only be like this. The more Guin looked at him, the more familiar he seemed. Wait, wasn't this the same woman that Guin had encountered in the Supreme Secret Records? Guin spoke up. From now on, don't dress as a woman anymore. There's no need to please me that way. I don't like it. The deep-sea dragon carp quickly nodded, although internally he was puzzled. If Guin did not like it, why did he read such books? Seeing how wronged the creature looked, Guin began to instruct him on the practice of spells. Hearing that there were spells to practice, the deep-sea dragon carp immediately perked up, sweeping away his feelings of aggrievement and simultaneously gaining some insight. Although the shape-shifting of the deep-sea dragon carp was absurd, it didn't affect Guin's life. He already had 3 female demons, and no matter what form the deep-sea dragon carp took, it couldn't pique his interest. After spending half a day in the hidden spirit palace, Guin then went to the heavenly Phoenix Mountain, where he could harvest a batch of high-rank medicinal herbs from the outer world cave, which should grant him tens of millions of years to his lifespan. There was no distinction between day and night in the outer world cave. After harvesting the herbs, Guin began to instruct the 3 female Tian Yaoer on their cultivation. Years had passed, and Tian Yaoer's cultivation level had reached the 9th layer of the mystic heart realm, and she was soon to assault the Mahayana realm. Her talent was exceptional, and with the abundance of high-rank medicinal herbs shared by Guin, her progress in cultivation naturally soared. Tian Qing and Tian Bai were less gifted than her, and had just broken through to the unification realm. Their pace of cultivation was already fast, at least faster than that of demons, whose cultivation was not as quick as that of cultivators of human race. The demons' advantage lay in their long lifespans, but under Guin's care, the 3 demons' cultivation speed was comparable to that of top human prodigies. After sparring for an ancient hour, the 3 demons were depleted of their demonic power. Their demonic power was considered abundant within their respective realms, but facing Guin, they had to go all out. Watching them exhausted, lying on the ground, drenched in sweat, Guin hovered midair, pointing out their weaknesses. After a while, the 3 demons gathered around him, inquiring about the outside world. They still vividly remembered the recent attack by the Immortal Lord during the Mid-Autumn Festival, his booming voice and imposing pressure. They were curious about the types of changes unfolding in the outside world. The Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court are fighting fiercely. Not long ago, I heard that an immortal spirit effortlessly moved an entire sea area with one hand, with billions of creatures at his mercy. He fought against the great cultivator of the Holy Court with the ocean in his grasp. It was earth-shattering. Guin casually picked an event to recount, listening intently as the 3 demons did. What he spoke of were actual events. As time passed, casualties of the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court escalated, deepening the hate between them. If this continued, a battle that would sweep across the great heaven and earth was inevitable. Guin had calculated somewhat, fearing that the fight might cause heaven and earth to split apart, but with so many variables, he couldn't clearly discern all the choices of the free immortal, or predict what was within the reincarnation tribulation of Shengtian. For the time being, it was impossible to see who would win or lose. Guin wasn't too worried, though, as Taitsong Continent, where he resided, hadn't suffered much from the disturbances. For him, that was enough. As they listened to the tales of the world's vicissitudes, Tian Yaoer's heart yearned, but she did not propose to venture out. Her strength was still insufficient. It was mere curiosity. Seeing their interest, Guan spoke of a few more events. If it could strengthen their will to pursue immortal cultivation, Guan was naturally pleased. Snowflakes fell, marking the end of the year. The end of Lu Jujia's destined life had come. Guan and Lu Jiujia sat at the edge of a cliff, overlooking Mystic Valley. Big brother, 600 years ago, did you ever think that Mystic Valley could ever achieve such prosperity? Lu Jiujia asked with a chuckle while stroking his beard. Eyes filled with many distant images that transitioned from hazy to clear. From here, one could see disciples in the forests outside Mystic Valley, cultivated demon beasts, various brightly colored groves. All within a dozen miles of Mystic Valley's domain, thriving and booming. Guan replied. Actually, I feel there isn't much difference between now and the past because some people are still here. Precisely, you're still here. The original acquaintances of Mystic Valley had dwindled to Lu Jiujiao alone. Once he passed on, Mystic Valley would become a closed chapter to Guan, or at least not as significant in his heart. Lu Jiujia turned to look at Guan, feeling that his big brother's profile was still so youthful, as if time had left no trace on him. Big brother, do you remember Suhan? Lu Jiujia suddenly asked. Guan glanced at him, replying, how could I forget? Until now, no other disciple has taken a more crooked path than him. Mentioning Suhan stirred even more emotions in Guan. As the brothers talked about Suhan, Guan began to recognize the Suhan described by Lu Jiujia. The snow grew heavier, and fog rose around Mystic Valley, gradually swallowing the sight of mortals. Lu Jiujia's head sank lower, and his voice weakened. Jiangshi stood in front of the wooden railing in the precinct, his gaze fixed on Lu Jiujiao atop the cliff, eyes brimming with reluctance. Last night, Lu Jiujia had already talked with him. He knew that today Lu Jiujia was going to depart. Though they called each other martial brothers in Medicine Valley, in Jiangshi's heart, Lu Jiujia was like his second father. The pain in Jiangshi's heart was overwhelming as his hands clenched the wooden railing tightly. And Shengtian emerged from the forest, and was about to greet Jiangshi when he caught the expression on Jiang's face, so Shengtian followed his gaze. Seeing the figures of Lu Jiujia and Guan, Shengtian fell silent. He was quite fond of Lu Jiujia as well, who had taken good care of him over the years. The thought of Lu Jiujia's impending death weighed heavily on him. He even thought of his own father and grandfather. A somber and oppressive atmosphere permeated Mystic Valley. All the disciples guessed what was happening. They dared not speak of it, choosing instead to bury themselves in their own tasks. As dusk approached, Guan carried Lu Jiujia down the mountain on his back, with the disciples gathering around in silence, watching Guan. Then, Guan began to bury Lu Jiujia as all the disciples in the valley stood vigil. After the tombstone was erected, the disciples together bowed in homage to Lu Jiujia. Under the veil of night, the accumulated snow on Guan's attic suddenly slid off, crushing a wild herb by the staircase. 40 years later, the beginning of summer. In the outer gate city, the 700-year-old Guan was at an inn, drinking with Wu Ju, who was 702. Wu Ju had just entered the mystic heart realm, and was in high spirits, endlessly recounting his breakthrough experience. With the assistance of the Supreme Sect, he breezed through his advancement. You have no idea how terrifying that heavenly tribulation was. If not for the sect's aid, I would have been reduced to ashes. The sect exhausted countless spirit stones for me, and my own spirit energy elixirs were completely used up. Wu Ju was animated, eliciting occasional gasps of amazement from Guan Mystic Heart Realm. A bit slow. That was even after Wu Ju was cultivated with care following his exoneration from a miscarriage of justice. Guan felt that Wu Ju was still far behind Li Xiandao, LV Xian, and Li Ye, and none of these three had a lifespan as long as his. After a while, Wu Ju set down his bowl of wine and asked with a smile, "What about you? How have you been these years? Any troubles?" Guan did not conceal the truth, sharing about the death of Lu Jiujia. Since that event, he spent less and less time in Mystic Valley. Yilan and Zhenqin were out making their own way in the world. For him, Mystic Valley was filled with juniors. Interacting with them, the disciples were inevitably reserved, making him feel it was pointless to stay there. Hearing this, Wu Ju fell silent, thinking how similarly devastated he would be if Guan died. He looked at Guan and said, "Brother Gu, you need to cultivate well. Given your age and cultivation level, nirvana is not beyond hope for you." Guan gave him a look and said irritably, "You talk as if you've already achieved nirvana yourself." "Hee, with my talent, is reaching the nirvana realm difficult? What if you get into trouble again? Inside the Supreme Sect, I might be able to figure something out, but outside, who could help you?" Guan shook his head, making Wu Ju feel awkward. He couldn't out-talk Guan, so he simply poured more wine. "This brat dares to mock me. Today I must get you drunk." Wu Ju thought so to himself. He then ordered the inn to serve their most expensive spiritual wine. 2 hours later, Guan settled the drunken Wu Ju into a guest room, and then descended the stairs himself, mounting the blood prison great saint, and continuing his stroll. "Master, what does that wine taste like? Even someone in the mystic heart realm can be knocked out by it?" The blood prison great saint asked curiously. Ever since he started on the path of immortal cultivation in the lower realm, he had never been drunk again, and so he found it quite intriguing. "From overseas, it's spiritual wine. We can order some from the tavern later." Guan replied offhandedly, his gaze turning to the street ahead. Each year, the outer gate city would see the emergence of many new things. This also meant that the influence of the Supreme Sect was constantly expanding. Since the Sheng family was dealt with, the pace of growth for the Supreme Sect accelerated further, and more powers engaged in trade with them, especially after the sword Venerable Fudao vanquished the immortal Lord Qiushi, driving this trend to its peak. Along the way, Guan greeted people with a smile that never left his face. Suddenly, Guan spotted someone and quickly called out, "Jiang Qiong, what brings you here?" He naturally knew the reason for her visit, but had to pretend otherwise. Jiang Qiong, dressed in a red gown with a light veil covering her face, had just stepped out from a building. Looking at Guan, her eyes curved into 2 smiling crescents. She approached the blood prison great saint and joked, "If I say I came looking for you, would you believe me?" "I don't." Guan shook his head. "I don't live here." Seeing that Jiang Qiong's cultivation level had reached the 8th floor of the unification realm, Guan was pleased. With a lifespan of over 5,000 years, she was sure to achieve nirvana. That meant she could accompany him for tens of thousands of years. Although many old acquaintances had passed away, there were still many who were alive, keeping Guan from feeling too lonely. He got down from his mount and walked shoulder to shoulder with Jiang Qiong. Jiang Qiong did not hide the purpose of her visit. Some disciples from the Juhua sect had a conflict with those from the Supreme Sect, and ended up being captured. She was here to demand their release. But the situation was complicated. The Supreme Sect claimed that it was the Ji family who captured the Juhua sect disciples, due to a death feud, and they were reluctant to interfere. Guan was unconcerned. "It's a trivial matter. When it comes to connections, I still have some clout. The guy who just got drunk was saved by me once." Chapter 403 Heavenly Tao Merit. "Is that so? Then I'll wait for you to help me," Jiang Qiong said to Guan, her smile all crinkles. Guan glanced at her and said, "Hold on, your real purpose isn't targeting the Ji family again, is it?" With all the people coming and going, aren't you afraid of being overheard by the Ji family?" Jiang Qiong sneered. There were indeed many people on the street, but there were just as many who talked big like Guan, so he was not afraid at all. "Within the Supreme Sect, who would dare to make things difficult for me?" Guan declared with feigned arrogance, then immediately flashed a smile and greeted someone who was approaching. Watching the adaptable Guan, Jiang Qiong couldn't help but want to laugh. After Guan's acquaintance had moved on, Jiang Qiong teased, "You know, I've heard that Sect Master LV wants to groom you as the next sect leader. I thought he was joking before, but now it seems you really might have a shot." Guan shook his head and said, "Forget about it, he hasn't mentioned this for many years." Since the integration of the overseas cultivators, LV Batian rarely brought up the position of sect leader. It wasn't that he was reluctant to let go, but rather, he increasingly found himself not his own master, with the power of the sect leader being diluted. Moreover, Appointing Guan as sect leader would only bring trouble to Guan. You're just not diligent in your cultivation, Jiang Qiong said irritably. Over 600 years ago, she had noticed Guan's extraordinary talent. Unfortunately, no matter how much she persuaded him, the lad was content to linger in the medicine garden, idly while away his days, fond of reading leisurely books, unwilling to cultivate diligently. What do you know? My approach is also a form of cultivation. You'll understand sooner or later. Qi absorption cultivation is the most foolish method. Should I look forward to that? Don't pretend to forget when the time comes. You seem to understand women quite well. I have no choice. I've gained many of my connections thanks to this face of mine. Naturally, I understand women after interacting with so many of them. I really want to seal you in a coffin for a lifetime. The two chatted and strolled through the streets. Jiang Qiong's mind quickly wandered elsewhere. Coming for help was true, but it wasn't her main purpose. She had come to find Sword Venerable Fu Dao. As night fell, in the woods outside the Supreme Sect, Jiang Qiong stood under a tree, frowning, the breeze stirring her robes, not feeling the cold at all. Her heart was in tumult. Centuries ago, when Sword Venerable Fu Dao had endowed her with the authority over the ghost mother of ephemera, she used it to establish the Juhua sect, rising from a helpless, solitary figure to a formidable force in the immortal cultivation world. Without Sword Venerable Fu Dao, she wouldn't have achieved what she had today. How could she not be nervous in front of Sword Venerable Fu Dao? Her greatest concern was not knowing what Sword Venerable Fu Dao really wanted in helping her. Born into a demon sect, she didn't believe in absolute perfection. Despite Sword Venerable Fu Dao's reputation for justice, he must have another side. She had foreseen many possibilities and was devising ways to cope. Crack! The sound of someone stepping on tree leaves came from not far away, startling her to turn and look, only to see a demonic figure emerging from the darkness. The demon shadow divine skill of the Thousand Autumn Pavilion. Jiang Qiong immediately bowed to Sword Venerable Fu Dao. What's the matter? Sword Venerable Fu Dao asked in a hoarse voice. Jiang Qiong remembered that voice. It was the same one that had sounded during the attack by the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Taking a deep breath, she immediately stated the reason for her visit. The ghost mother of ephemera had been captured. Her disciples had been possessed by a spirit thought of the captor all the way back to the Juhua sect. It was only in front of Jiang Qiong did the spirit thought reveal itself, belonging to the spirit seized demon palace, wanting to use the ghost mother of ephemera to force the Juhua sect to serve them. Jiang Qiong had yet to agree when the spirit thought made its demands. Every year, the Juhua sect must deliver 10,000 cultivators under 1,000 years old to the spirit-seized demon palace. Before Jiang Qiong could react, the spirit thought wounded high-ranking members of the Juhua sect and left arrogantly. Jiang Qiong had no other choice but to seek out Sword Venerable Fu Dao. The Juhua sect is a sect of the righteous path. How could it commit such atrocities at the behest of overseas demons from the demon path? Jiang Qiong said emphatically. Watching her serious demeanor, Guan wanted to laugh. Such an act. Guan turned away, dropping a sentence before moving into the darkness. I understand now. They will not trouble you again. And as for the ghost mother of ephemera, she will return on her own. Hearing this, Jiang Qiong breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at the retreating back of Sword Venerable Fu Dao and asked through clenched teeth. Senior, why did you choose me? With that question, the dark cloud hanging over her finally dispersed. Some things had to be faced. After witnessing Sword Venerable Fu Dao's divine skills suppress the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, she felt she would never surpass Sword Venerable Fu Dao in this lifetime, so there was no need to wait. Without turning back, Guan kept walking, and his voice floated back to her. I helped you because of a request from my disciple. As for his identity, you need not worry. Isn't he the only person you care about in this world? With those words, Guan vanished into thin air. He knew Jiang Qiong had always been worried about this matter, so he took this opportunity to ease her concerns. Upon hearing this, Jiang Qiong's eyes widened, and she froze on the spot. After a long while, she burst into laughter, whispering, You really do have connections at the Supreme Sect. She didn't mind that Guan had deliberately concealed this from her. After all, her life had changed because of him. It was she who was indebted to him. What right did she have to complain? In her heart, she felt more of a pleasant surprise. With the guidance of Sword Venerable Fudao, Gu An's future would certainly surpass hers. Thinking back to what Guan had said, that chi absorption cultivation was the dumbest method, might actually be true. Sword Venerable Fudao had imparted to him a more profound method of cultivation. Jiang Qiong lifted her head and gazed at the bright moon peeking through the leaves, finding it as beautiful as her current mood. Elsewhere, Guan returned to the loft in the Third Medicine Valley. His main body switched places with the clone, completely unbeknownst to Ji Xiaoyu below, and even the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor would be unable to see through it. Guan picked up the fate-determining pen on the table. Before Jiang Qiong had arrived, he had already deduced the nature of the demon sect of ghostly bindings, a purely demon path power. Its sect leader was a reincarnation of a heavenly demon with awakened memories, choosing the Taitsong continent to investigate Sword Venerable Fudao, preparing for the heavenly demon's invasion of the great heavenly spirit land. Every single member of the demon sect of ghostly bindings was undoubtedly sinful to the extreme. Killing them was, in essence, ridding the world of a scourge. Guan began to write in the air with the pen, scribing the characters for demon sect of ghostly bindings, then determined their life or death with the longevity true word. Any link to the demon sect of ghostly bindings' chi fortune would be reduced to ashes. The sect leader of the demon sect of ghostly bindings was a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Below him, the sect's influence was roughly comparable to the Star Sea congregations, although they did not have as many members. When Guan placed the fate-determining pen back on the table, several notifications appeared before him. You have successfully seized 709 years of lifespan from the true man of Een Calamity, Loose Immortal Realm 7th floor. You have successfully seized 2,171 years of lifespan from Lin Geshuan, Wandering Immortal Realm 2nd floor. You have successfully seized 624 years of lifespan from Yangfu, Nirvana Realm 8th floor. Guan looked at these notifications, his face expressionless. The demon sect of ghostly bindings, which had brought despair to Jiang Qiong, was as insignificant as dust on a table in his eyes. However, as more notifications kept coming, Guan felt a special chi fortune approaching him through the depths. He felt a familiar attachment to it, instinctively wanting to accept it, but he restrained himself. This was the heavenly Daos reward for him. Slaying those with heavy sins would grant him this chi fortune. To be precise, it was not exactly chi fortune, as it was both invisible and intangible. Merit. Guan suddenly had an epiphany. The concept of merit was long rumored among the mortal world. It was not without foundation. Indeed, as humans acted, the heavens did watch. Unlike the great cold demon sect, the demon sect of ghostly bindings bore greater sin. While the great cold demon sect could wash away much of its sins with the chi fortune of the holy court, the demon sect of ghostly bindings did not rely on the holy court, acted recklessly, and had sins rarely seen in this age. The heavenly Tao merit Guan would receive for eradicating the demon sect of ghostly bindings was immense. If he mentally accepted it, it would rush toward him. Guan did not accept the heavenly Tao merit. He decided to keep a distance from the heavenly Tao. Finally, the notifications ceased. In one go, he had obtained 7 billion years of lifespan. Still, earning lifespan through killing was the fastest method. At that moment, Guan even felt the impulse to eradicate all the forces of the demon path in the world, but then he remembered the fate of Long Zhan, and he held back. No matter how he persuaded himself, he was acting out of self-interest. The more people he killed, the greater the impact would be. He could not act rashly. Guan opened his attribute panel, and saw that his lifespan had reached over 29 billion years. His Taoist heart calmed down. With more years accumulated, he would be ready for a breakthrough. Although he had no concerns about the passage of time, he knew he must continue to grow stronger lest any insurmountable enemies appeared. The moon set and the sun rose. At noon the next day, Ji Xiaoyu came to find Guan. The Juhua sect disciples have been released, Ji Xiaoyu said, looking intently at Guan. Guan put down the book in his hands and looked up with a smile. Thank you. What is your relationship with the Juhua sect leader? She asked. Hearing her query, Guan did not conceal the truth and roughly explained the process of his acquaintance with Jiang Qiong. She offered me considerable help in the early stages of my immortal cultivation. Without her guidance, I wouldn't have achieved what I have today, Guan said earnestly. What else? Ji Xiaoyu inquired. Guan asked in surprise. What do you mean by what else? What else do you want to know? Ji Xiaoyu was about to speak, but then her expression shifted, and she said, Never mind, I have my destiny in this life, and cannot obtain longevity. The fact that you have so many women who treat you well means that even if I return to my original self, I would have lived a content life this time around. You speak as if you're a different person. You are you, and the soul doesn't change. You have no need to worry, Guan said, trying to comfort her. Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. You don't understand this feeling. With that, she turned and left. Watching her go, Guan couldn't help but think of her previous incarnation as the third Mississippi. He suddenly felt some regret. Perhaps it was from experiences in his youth, but he held complex feelings for the third Miss, gratitude, and perhaps affection as well. Maybe Ji Xiaoyu was right. At least in this life, she seemed like a different person compared to the third Mississippi. In that case, he had yet to see the third Miss for the last time. Perhaps at the end of her life, the third Miss never even thought of him. Guan shook his head and chastised himself for being sentimental. He picked up the Green Hero Travelogue and began to cultivate his mind. It was Xian Tianyi's free-spirited literary style that influenced Guan, helping him dispel the meaningless sorrows in his heart multiple times. Those who were gone had passed away. It was important to cherish those who were alive. Life must go on. Such were Gu An's thoughts as he soon became engrossed in a story of an isolated island. Chapter 404. The Descent of a Deity. In preparing to leave now, thank you for making a move, said Jiang Qiong to Guan, speaking earnestly outside of Mystic Valley. Not far from them, in the nearby woods, several Juhua sect disciples were resting and healing, awaiting Jiang Qiong. Guan waved his hand. If you wish to thank someone, thank Ji Xiaoyu. Jiang Qiong knew of Ji Xiaoyu, and she also understood that this Ji Xiaoyu was not the Ji Xiaoyu she knew. She did not dwell on Ji Xiaoyu, but instead, pondering on the words of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, asked softly, Why do you help me so much from behind the scenes and yet always choose to remain patient and silent? Guan understood what she was referring to. He blinked and said, What would it change if I said anything? To make you more grateful? That would be so dull. You should just focus on growing the Juhua sect. Life's journey is long. I hope that thousands of years from now, we can still share drinks and converse cheerfully. Upon hearing this, Jiang Qiong smiled and said, Then you better live for thousands of years. I'll try my best. After hearing Gu An's words, Jiang Qiong smiled, then turned and left. As Guan watched her leave, he felt none of the sadness one might feel when parting with someone from the past because he knew he and Jiang Qiong would meet many more times. And to him, the Juhua sect was not far away. Some distances are not measured by steps, but rather by the rolling mortal world pushing the wheel of fate. Even though some people will continue to live, there will come a moment when Guan might feel this parting is a final farewell. After Jiang Qiong and the others flew away on their swords, Guan couldn't help but stretch lazily. I still have to face the new life ahead. Just 700 years old. And already feeling melancholic. What will I do when I'm 1,000,000, 10 million, or even 100 million years old? Guan thought to himself with a smile on his face. Birth, aging, sickness, and death cannot be stopped, so why cling to them? Cherishing a lifetime of fate is enough. Guan turned and walked back into Mystic Valley, his thoughts turning to Xiaochuan. How has the rascal not reincarnated yet? With others, Guan might only desire a lifetime's fate, but with Xiaochuan he was much greedier. 5 years later, inside a courtyard of the Juhua sect, Jiang Qiong sat opposite the ghost mother of ephemera. After listening to the ghost mother's words, Jiang Qiong wore a strange expression and asked, Are you sure it was 5 years ago? Yes, it was a very quiet night. No one came looking for me until dawn. So I went out to look around, only to find that all the people from the Demon Disciple Palace were dead. A very peculiar death, with no signs of battle, as if their souls had been extracted. Not a single demon disciple was left alive throughout the whole palace, But we who were imprisoned all survived, the ghost mother of Ephemera recalled, her face unable to hide the fear. Jiang Qiong was inwardly shocked. She knew sword Venerable Fudao was powerful, but the ghost mother's description was still frightening. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Qiong revealed that she had asked for sword Venerable Fudao's help. Upon hearing this, the ghost mother actually relaxed and revealed an ecstatic expression. Allying with sword Venerable Fudao is the best decision I've made in my life. Jiang Qiong looked at her and thought silently, you will regret it. By seeking sword Venerable Fudao's help, she considered herself having repaid the help that the ghost mother had provided over the years. However, the ghost mother was hated by Zhen Qin. Given the relationship, Zhen Qin could be considered a grand disciple of sword Venerable Fudao. By any measure, the ghost mother would sooner or later face her death. It was also obvious that sword Venerable Fudao didn't care much for the ghost mother. The destruction of the demon disciple palace is an opportunity for us. I found many good things there which can help the Juhua sect to soar. The ghost mother of Ephemera suddenly said excitedly. Jiang Qiong's eyes shone, and the two began to discuss taking over the soul-binding demon palace. In the holy court, on a glittering golden hall, the holy minister sat on his throne, listening to the reports from the ministers in the hall. Behind him, the imperial seat of Shengtian emitted a faint golden glow, as if a figure was sitting upon it. Currently, our control over the world is shrinking, and there have even been consecutive occurrences of sects and dynasties being wiped out within our controlled territory without any trace of the true culprits. An old man said with a voice full of age. The holy minister spoke. In these extraordinary times, there is no need to expend energy investigating. The holy court's goal is the immortal dynasty. Once the immortal dynasty is destroyed, regaining control over the world will be as easy as flipping one's hand. It's just the right time to let all living beings feel the darkness of the years without the holy court's protection. Having held power for too long, those who were born in times of peace do not know the terrors of the dark years. His words received approval from many in the hall, as the Yuanqiu ancestor had blessed all living beings, and even opened up reincarnation, resulting in the immortal dynasty having a better reputation. This could be glimpsed from the difference in the growth of their respective chi fortunes. The hearts of all living beings were leaning towards the immortal dynasty. A man clad in battle armor stepped forward and said, "The urgent matter at hand is to cultivate a free immortal. Holy Minister, gather the strength of the entire court to boost your cultivation level." As soon as these words were spoken, many echoed in agreement, even beseeching the Holy Minister. The Holy Minister was already at the 9th layer of the divine thought true immortal realm, just one step away from becoming a free immortal. Why must it be the Holy Minister, and not the Holy God? Someone questioned, casting the great hall into silence. The Holy Minister glanced at him, not in anger but instead inquired, "Does anyone else have a differing opinion?" The cultivators of the Holy Court within the hall exchanged glances, but no one else made a sound. With a thunderous boom, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck from nowhere, hitting the person who had just raised the objection, reducing him instantly to ashes. The Holy Minister stood up and declared, "Since you all wish for me to attain the status of a free immortal, let us then prepare the plan. I will amass the chief fortune of the Holy Court to verify the path of the free immortal. Let the citizens of the Holy Court witness my process of tribulation crossing, to broaden their horizons." Many in the hall wore ugly expressions. Even if they feared the Holy Minister's power and dared not object, how could they not be angry in their hearts at the sight of the Holy Minister executing a court official at will? In the end, led by someone taking the initiative, everyone began to thank the Holy Minister on behalf of the citizens of the Holy Court. The Holy Minister looked up, and the vision of a starry sky emerged above him. That fellow should be returning soon. When he comes back, that will be my opportunity for a breakthrough. The Holy Minister murmured to himself. Elsewhere, in the mystic valley of the Supreme Sect, Guan read a book in the forest while an Xian sat nearby practicing her martial arts. Glancing towards an Shengtian not far away, practicing with his sword, while Jiangshi watched him closely. Why choose to practice with a sword? It doesn't seem impressive enough, mused an Xian. Her gaze following to Guan. Guan turned a page and said, Everyone makes their own choices. Let him be. Master, what weapon suits me? She asked. Are you not practicing the sword? I feel the sword doesn't suit me. I like magic artifacts like the brush in your hand. They're more novel. Then you should think about it yourself. Don't ask me. Guan replied dismissively, then stood up and tucked the green hero travelogue into his chest. An Exian followed him to her feet, her voice filled with grievance. How could I possibly come up with one? I follow your guidance in my training. Help me think of something. Guan did not respond but looked up instead. The sky was a brilliant blue, and a streak of white light flashed across rapidly, disappearing in an instant. Another has arrived. It seems things will get even more chaotic, Guan thought to himself. That streak of white light just now was unmistakably a free immortal. Chapter 405. Zhu Zai's Prudence, Immortal World Deity. Master, what are you looking at? An Exian curiously asked as she too looked up, but there was nothing in the sky. She would not believe that Guan was just looking at nothing. He must have seen something. Guan withdrew his gaze and said with a light smile, Another formidable fellow has descended to the mortal world. How formidable! So formidable that not even the heavens can stop him. Listening to his words, an Exian contemplated in silence. Guan then looked at Enshengtian. Perhaps it was because there were too many peerless talents around him that Enshengtian's talent seemed mediocre in his eyes. However, it didn't matter. Guan had taken him in merely wanting to give him a hand, not expecting anything in return. The younger generations had their own lives to live. He was there to provide help. Where they chose to go was not his concern. Guan shifted his attention and walked towards the valley. An Exian hurriedly followed. Jiangshi turned his head, feeling anxious. He knew that Guan was the sword venerable Fudao, who had a disciple that was a legend of the supreme sect. It was clear that Enshengtian was far behind Enhao, and Jiangshi, having heard of Enhao's deeds, knew how astonishing Enhao's speed was. Enhao had that incredible speed because Guan had personally guided him, which was not a treatment Enshengtian received. Guan had watched Enshengtian practice many times, merely observing, which made Jiangshi anxious. Without solid fundamentals, the gap with those peerless talents would only grow wider. Master, how is my knife technique? Enshengtian suddenly turned his head and asked Jiangshi, his voice excited. Jiangshi answered in a perfunctory manner. You still need to practice more. Having said that, he left with a sweep of his sleeve. Enshengtian was puzzled. Why did it seem like his master was in a bad mood? On the other hand, Guan took an Exian to Mortal World Peak, where he taught her cultivation. Guan spared no effort in nurturing an Exian. She was, after all, his treasured disciple. He truly planned to train an Exian to surpass Enhao and Yangjian. At present, Enzin's talent was indeed far from those two, but Guan had resources and could impart teachings, so there was hope to bridge the gap in talent. Enhao and Yangjian did not have the guidance of the Taoist hidden immortal. 2 ancient hours later, Guan was walking down the mountain trail, while an Exian stayed on the peak. As Mortal World Peak changed its criteria for accepting disciples, there were now many below the Nirvana realm. Along the way, Guan encountered disciples greeting him, and he would nod his head with a smile. Unlike the ever-changing Supreme Sect, Dingtian Peak hadn't changed much. Even the flora along the path had stayed largely the same for many years. After a long time, Guan reached the base of Dingtian Peak, where there were more and more disciples, and the noise grew louder. Here, no disciples recognized Guan, so no one greeted him. Guan made his way to a medicine garden. He turned his head and saw a woman sprinkling spirit water in the garden. It was Zhu Xi with the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body. Recently, Zhu Xi faced a predicament, having offended a disciple of Dingtian Peak, and had been suppressed here for nearly 10 years. In those 10 years, Zhu Xi had been very obedient, gradually making the disciple forget about her. While sprinkling water, Zhu Xi sensed something and looked up, then saw Guan watching her. She pretended to be flustered and timidly asked, "Senior, can I help you with anything?" Such an act. This individual seemed to be at the nascent soul stage 5th level, but in reality, she had once consumed the spiritual power of a unification realm cultivator, even destroying their soul. The strength of the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body far exceeded all the physiques of the current age. Not even an Hao or Yang Jian could match her. Zhu Zai's strength could not be measured by the surface realm. In a sense, she and Guan were alike. She could consume spiritual power and mana, while Guan could take lifespan. It's nothing, I just happened to pass by. Why are you the only one in this medicine garden? Guan asked with a chuckle, his demeanor gentle, easing Zhu Zai's nervousness. Zhu Shi replied. The garden owner has gone to visit a Taoist friend, and I don't know when he'll return. Once he's back, I can leave. Guan beckoned Zhu Shi to come over. After hesitating for a moment, Zhu Shi still stepped out of the medicine garden and approached Guan. Stopping about 5 steps away, she asked anxiously, Senior, is there something specific you need me to do? Guan raised his right hand, pinched his fingers, and 5 secret books appeared in his hands, fanning out to reveal their titles. Meeting by chance is fate. You caught my eye, pick one. Guan had calculated that if things continued this way, Zhu Shi would inevitably take a path hostile to Mortal World Peak. After all, he was the peak master of Dingtian Peak, and should do something for Mortal World Peak. Besides, he was very much looking forward to Zhu Zai's future. Zhu Shi glanced at them, a strange look on her face. Heaven and Earth primordial skill, stepping path of ages step, Taoist gang primal energy, primordial reincarnation skill, universe in the palm. They all seemed impressive but unreliable. Since when were peerless secret books inscribed on paper? Immortal cultivation sects used jade scrolls, read by divine sense. Guan was not in a hurry, leaving the choice to her. If she did not fancy any, then so be it. Guan didn't have to resort to this method to resolve potential resentment. If Zhu Shi dared to cause trouble in Dingtian Peak, he could suppress her with a flip of his hand. Could the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body consume the immense mana of a great cultivator, who cultivates the mixed yuan refining void physique? Zhu Shi, though skeptical, had a second thought. Choosing a book wouldn't be a loss, and what if the person became furious if she declined? Having cultivated for many years, Zhu Shi had encountered various troubles, and had experience in dealing with them. She pulled a secret book, and then bowed in thanks to Guan's stepping path of ages step. Guan gazed deeply at her for a moment, then smiled, turned and left. Zhu Shi didn't expect him to just walk away. She watched as Guan's figure vanished around the bend of the mountain path, before returning to the garden. She didn't continue sprinkling water, but sat down at the wooden table to read the stepping path of ages step. Before long, her expression grew solemn. Her hands clutching the secret book even trembled. This divine skill. Zhu Shi looked up, no longer sensing Guan's presence. But she remembered Guan's face, her heart full of complex emotions. After reading the secret book, she confirmed the divine skill was authentic and extremely powerful, and that he had not deceived her, which made her wildly speculate. Why had he taken a liking to her? It certainly wasn't because she was easy on the eyes. Could he have seen through to her physique? Zhu Shi might not understand the origin of her physique, but she knew that once news of it spread, she would become everyone's enemy. No. She must leave Mortal World Peak. This thought cemented in Zhu Zai's mind with resolve. Days later, Third Medicine Valley inside an attic. Guan was chatting with Shenzhen, his divine sense locked onto Zhu Shi. He hadn't anticipated his well-intentioned action would scare Zhu Shi away, which made him even more curious about her. She was too cautious, eerily reminiscent of his own self. He wasn't upset. On the contrary, he looked forward to Zhu Zai's future even more, considering her disposition made her more likely to survive. I dream less frequently now. Do you think I've lost my talent? Shenzhen said, worried. Her consciousness had dwelled in dreams while Demon Shore possessed her body, so she was utterly unaware of its existence, let alone its death. Guan laughed. The way you used to dream was already extraordinary, akin to path enlightenment. You can't be expecting that to happen all the time. What you should do now is reflect on your past insights, consolidate your Taoist heart. Sooner or later, there'll be a next time. Do you know of Wu Ju? He began telling her about Wu Ju's experiences with path enlightenment, omitting the part about lifespan limits, but Wu Ju indeed had multiple bouts of enlightenment. Shenzhen had not expected Wu Ju to have such a background, which explained his sudden rise. Now that I think about it, Why does everyone associated with you seem to encounter all sorts of fortunes? Shinjun suddenly asked. Guan raised an eyebrow. Could it be my doing? Shouldn't you be kneeling and thanking me? Shinjun rolled her eyes in response. How could that be? You wish. I just think it's a bit coincidental. Maybe there's something common among us. Perhaps it's Chi Fortune. There was a great cultivator who came to the Supreme Sect to teach. I listened to his lecture about Chi Fortune. Guan had not attended the lecture because the speaker was just a loose immortal. Now, hearing Shinjun, he listened attentively. A person with great fortune of energy movement would always turn danger into safety and break through limits, and they also seem to attract each other. Given this explanation, it indeed seemed reasonable to attribute it to Chi Fortune. After chatting with Guan, Shinjun's worries dissipated. She felt that Guan was right. There was no need for overthinking. The gains she had already made were plenty. As long as she maintained equanimity, she would eventually find enlightenment through music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I am a mortal world immortal. All beings speak my name with devout faith, and shall receive the protection of my divine power. A loud and authoritative voice rang out, startling the entire world and interrupting Shinjun's speech. Shinjun, struck with astonishment, said, I coined the name Mortal World Immortal when I was writing and even came up with a scenario. After I drew it, the picture somehow disappeared. Guan immediately knew it had been destroyed by Demon Shore, fearing it would alarm the Mortal World Immortal. This Mortal World Immortal was also of the 9th level in the free immortal realm. He lacked the Chi Fortune of the Holy Court, but was entangled in intricate karma with it. His arrival was likely at the Holy Court's behest. Should I redraw it for you? Shinjun offered, standing to grab pen and paper. Wait, with him now descended to the mortal world. You dare to draw? Aren't you afraid he might suddenly appear before us right now? Guan glared at her, irritated. Shinjun realized the logic and opted to sit back down. He claims divinity. Could he be an actual immortal? Shinjun asked, curious. Before the conflict between the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court, people thought they were immortals. But as the world plunged into chaos, the fantasy shattered, and they came to be seen simply